The concern that some of the other power officials have told us about this morning, that as temperatures continue to get colder throughout the day, that some of that precipitation, some of that sleet that was on the power lines will continue to harden and cause those power lines to fall. Is that a concern that you have as well?
Well, you're always have it on your mind, but I can tell you PC's done a great job in reinforcing a lot of the lines, replacing, and so we've got excellent hardware out there. You're always a little bit susceptible, but I feel very confident in the system that we have, and this doesn't seem to be as large of an event that occurred back in February by any means. So I'm confident that we're going to be okay on that front.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I mean, when you drive these roads as you're doing this morning and you're looking out your window, how does what you're seeing in this moment compare to February 2021 or even previous winter events, over time?
Well, night and day difference. That was unprecedented what happened a year ago. It was almost unbelievable how intense it was, the duration of it, as well as how widespread it was. This is a typical, event that I remember growing up with, and this is not a huge event in my opinion, and I think we're just lucky that the ground temp again wasn't sustained in a freezing mode prior to the precipitation hitting. That was the saving grace on this situation. If you'll remember, a year ago, we had two waves that hit, and the first one cooled things down, and then came the precipitation that just froze and stayed frozen.
Judge, I know after last year's winter event, a lot of officials that I've spoken to over the course of the year describe buying equipment and buying materials that they never thought they would need here in Central Texas. So I'm curious about what you and other county leaders have done over the past year to possibly do that, possibly make sure you have resources on hand and materials on hand that maybe you would have never thought about prior to last year.
Well, that's a good question. I can't speak for the other counties, but I just know with Burnett County that we bought a couple of spreaders to be able to spread material out on the roads that affix to the back of of course, most of our vehicles are four-wheel drive anyway, so we can get out and about. We are the hill country, so sometimes we need to get in some cantankerous places. But what happened last year just, nudged you to remember to make sure that you have stockpiles of certain materials that don't go bad, so you might as well have them on site and be prepped. And, we've got, just like on any storm, you prepare, and the county crews as well as Txdot went out and treated key areas. The low water crossings, the bridges and whatnot. So we've always been prepared, but we upped the ante a bit after last year. And of course, we're all somewhat at the mercy of Mother Nature. And at some point, you just gotta, we are not stronger than Mother Nature. We can prepare all we want, but at some point you need to hunker in your bunker. And, today's, I would call a semi-hunker, to put it in country terms, that, you just need to be really careful out there. And I'm glad to hear that at Mason, precipitation is drying up. That means it's going to be here probably in an hour or so. And so it'll clear out the precipitation. And if the temperature is right, and then this won't be a sustained problem on the roads.
Judge, just one last quick question. Is there anything you're asking the residents of Burnett County to do throughout the day and into the evening today?
Well, just use good old common sense. If you absolutely have to get out, just do it with great care. Maybe, and I would advise not traveling by yourself. It's always good to have somebody else with you. Make sure you have your cell phone with you, and just use good common sense.
Judge James Oakley from Burnett County, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it very much.
Well, I appreciate your coverage and on what's going on in the Hill Country.
You bet. Thanks so much.
I like the judge's comments there. Hunker in your bunker.
Just hunker in your bunker.
And just use good old common sense.
There we go.
It's not that hard.
Follow what Judge Oakley says. It makes sense. You know, let's bring in Shane right now. Shane, we're talking about just looking ahead to what we've experienced from overnight, right now, looking ahead, accumulation. You kept talking about the importance of that with the ice on top of more ice. Talk about that.
So the reason why we're kind of honing in on how much accumulation we could see is the more we get, obviously, the longer it's going to take for it to thaw. Right? We were talking yesterday about at some point, you know, it's still going to spell out for bad travel conditions. That's why we're constantly, it sounds like we're a broken record, I know, talking to you about staying off the roads at all costs unless you're emergency management or maybe you have to head into work, you're working at the hospital. But we are going to be continuing to monitor even the potential for more ice accumulation throughout the day, even in I-35. I want to give you a live look out at our Concordia University web camera where you can see this tree completely coated in ice on its branches, and it is shaking quite a bit. That is due to the strong winds. So whenever we have ice accumulation specifically on tree limbs and the wind could snap, that's where I think a lot of our power outages are going to come from today. It's going to be due to the fact that trees are knocking out power lines. Notice that we're taking a look at the winter weather alerts. You have the winter storm warnings in pink, taking up about half of the state, but not all of the state. That's a flashback to February of last year. Notice those winter weather advisories extend all the way to our friends and family members out there in Houston, but no warnings have been issued for them just yet, or if there will be one. I do want to focus in kind of on the moisture here. So you can see it's a little bit mixed here. We have that band of rain out towards the east, then you have the areas of pink, which is a wintry mix, both of freezing rain and sleet, and then also we're tracking maybe the possibility of some sleet or snow flurries out there in the hill country. Notice how I do see it clearing behind that wintry precipitation as it continues to push out towards the east. This is what the forecast models have been trending towards. Our high resolution forecast models are constantly refreshing. I do want to point out a little bit closely as you make your way really along just west of I-35. You kind of see that area where it's going from pink to white. That is an intensifying band of freezing rain and sleet that the National Weather Service is kind of honing in on. We're going to watch that very closely because that could add additional layers really of ice as we make our way to the I-35 corridor. That's something they were monitoring around 10:25, so about 9 or 10 minutes ago. As we take a look at the current winds, I mentioned it was breezy out there. When you factor in the ice accumulating on branches that could snap, those strong winds are only going to help with that situation, and by help I mean aid is what I mean. You can see gusts around 31 miles per hour out at Camp Mabry, gusts anywhere from 24 to 20 miles per hour out in the hill country, 20 mile per hour gusts out in Fayette County. Now we're taking a live look using ATX floods. You can see this is a picture out at Old Bee Caves Road at Williamson Creek. Now earlier this morning we were tracking some aerial flood advisories that were extending for portions of Hayes, Travis, and Williamson counties. That was due to that excessive rainfall that we received of anywhere from 1 to 2 inches indicated by radar last night. We thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of discuss why we see bridges and overpasses that freeze faster than other areas. So most roads, you know, they lose their heat evenly, but whenever you have normal roads that are above the ground, they are not as insulated because they're not at the Earth's surface. So notice this, with those bridges and overpasses, those strong winds, that cool air is able to filter in under those bridges and overpasses or elevated surfaces, and then it's able to allow that surface to cool faster than the surrounding area. So ones that maybe, you know, isn't seeing as much cooling due to it being at the ground. There's nothing to be able to move under it, that cooler air that we're talking about from the north. This means that bridges and overpasses are going to cool off faster. They're losing their heat. They are also losing it in both directions. They lose it pointing upward and then also under the bridges and overpasses as well. So if you're just curious, we're trying to sprinkle in a few interesting winter weather facts for you throughout the morning and throughout the afternoon. Giving you an updated look at your temperatures without the radar, you can see that we're into hard freeze territory in areas such as Lago Vista in the mid-20s, 28 now in Austin, 30 out at the airport. And then as we take a look across all of central Texas, we're dropping even further as you make your way toward Fredericksburg. We're talking lower 20s, both in Fredericksburg and in Llano. I want to give you a quick look at those temperatures across the country, and taking a look at that system, you can see that storm stretching all the way out to the northeast. Temperatures even cooler. I try to provide some perspective. I know it's cold, but imagine if we were Minneapolis -5 degrees cold. So, you know, once again, silver linings that we're looking for you here in your forecast. Things that you should know throughout the day today. This precipitation is expected to fully transition into freezing rain or sleet. Yes, flurries will be possible. I've already seen some videos submitted by our viewers that looks like it was snow out in Mason, and we had snow reports, some flurry reports out in Georgetown last night even. But we want to continue to focus in on those ice accumulations. Right now, thinking that we could get up to 1/3 of an inch for areas that are within the warning box. And then as we're talking about some heavier isolated areas, they could be up to 1/2 an inch. Sleet accumulation, I think, is going to be more of a weather headline as we go throughout the rest of the afternoon. We're going to continue to monitor the chats with the National Weather Service to see if we are going even higher with our sleet accumulation, because I think some of the models are starting to trend towards more sleet than ice, which would be good news for power outages, but not the best of news for our travel, you guys.
I'll tell you what, you're always filled with great information. And in case you want to see a recap of why bridges freeze faster, I recorded it. I'm putting it on Twitter right now.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm recording it from my own so I can break it down in my head.
There we go.
Great information, Shane. As always, appreciate it.
All right, now we have reporters spanned out across central Texas right now, and we're going to go northeast to Georgetown. Thanvi Varma is joining us there near I-35. Thanvi, on your ride out there, did you experience anything, and what are you experiencing as you stand there alongside I-35? Good morning to you, or good afternoon almost, maybe?
Good afternoon, maybe good morning, a little of both. It is really cold either way. As you can see, it's drizzling frozen rain. It's actually hitting my face. It kind of hurts, so if you want to stay inside, you probably should today. And if you walk with me this way, you'll see that there's frozen rain pellets that cover and make a layer around these plants. As you can see, it's pretty deep. Now, the better news is that the roads where I'm at don't have a layer of frozen ice. They have just some slush, so you want to make sure that you're driving slowly, leaving a lot of space in front of the car and behind the cars behind you. And other than that, stay inside if you can. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Thanvi. You could just see the sleet there by her feet right there as she was shuffling. You could hear the sleet. You know, this is where it looked like earlier this morning. We had a lot of pictures and video sent into us this morning. I know we talked about being careful on those steps, not to slide there. We also talked about the ice accumulating, whether it was on just your car, on the railing, just different things like that. We want to see what it looks like outside your front door. So you can send us pictures, you can send us video, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you do it from a safe place, right? So tweet us and tag our KVUE account or text us those photos to 512-459-9442, and we're going to share them right here on KVUE.
And maybe the easiest way to do it is just to use the hashtag DaybreakATX, DaybreakATX on social media.
There we go. That really shows. You could see with the ruler there.
Yes, here's different neighborhood views around the city of Austin sent in by some of you, and we appreciate that. Lionel said he's tracking 0.1 inch of ice. There you go. All right, 1/10 of an inch. Keep sending in your photos, tweet us, tag our KVUE account again, text us again, the number on your screen there, 512-459-9442, hashtag DaybreakATX.
And at first glance, it does look like snow, but it's definitely not. It's
Snow's
sleet.
more fun. You know, it's not likely to bust yourself on snow.
I know. It's just tough. You know, you guys sent some photos of animals in the winter weather. Yes, my buddy sent in this, and I loved it. Look at this little birdie just look kind of confused, and then you see the dogs out there. They're just like, what is this? But these cuties are doing just fine. Zach sent us that picture of the bird, and we have other photos here of our video, I should say, of these dogs. You know what? Something different, right? It's
love it.
It's like a weather day even for the dogs. So
I love this video, especially the ones that love the cold weather. You know, like the Huskies get out there and they are in heaven.
Yeah, they're having a good time. You know what I mean?
None of them are wearing sweaters. Where are all of our dogs with sweaters at? That's what I'm waiting for. Those pictures, those videos.
Yeah.
Dogs with sweaters.
I know.
All right, here's some more from our Daybreak producers, Steve. Steven. He's at home in Southwest Austin. We want to see your pictures again. Tweet us, tag us, hashtag DaybreakATX 512-459-9442. It looks so much more fun than it is.
I know. I was thinking about this. The dogs might like it, but the owners don't want to take the dogs out to go do their business. You know what I mean? So they're like, we're cold. Just go by yourself and come back in.
Please don't run away.
You know, here are some more photos of downtown set by sports reporter Emily John Greco. These are really nice, Emily. You can see some ice on the rooftops and in the grass as well. Keep sending us your pics. Tweet us and tag our KVUE account or text us those photos to 512-459-9442. Of course, we like to share them. Now, let's head out to Connor. Connor, you're still are you in Round Rock right now? Tell us about what you're experiencing out there.
Yvonne, yeah, I'm in Round Rock now. We've kind of been between Pflugerville and Round Rock this morning, and right now what we're seeing is getting a lot colder. Like Shane said, that's the thing we're feeling right now. We're not seeing that downpouring rain and sleet like we were seeing earlier, but we are seeing it on the ground. And like you said, it kind of looks like snow on the ground until you go feel it. There's that icy kind of granular, it's just ice, it's sleet. Well, let you see behind me, like I said, we're in Round Rock. This is Interstate 35 where I-35 meets Highway 45, that flyover. And one thing when we noticed driving around, we were on some of the side roads and they were not as bad. They were not very icy, but we did see one crash earlier where it looks like someone spun out on I-35 and they're faced the wrong way on the shoulder. And also in some parking lots we drove in, we also felt that ice. So kind of some of those side streets that didn't get treated, or maybe even those uplifted areas you kind of just want to stay off of. But like we've said continuously, we do recommend staying off the roads. We're out here driving safe because we want to show you the conditions, but I definitely would not recommend going out on the roads if you don't have to. Just not a good idea. And in Williamson County, they actually ordered twice the amount of sand and de-icing material as last year just to be prepared for this. And they say here they have crews on 12-hour shifts to be on call to treat roads during this storm. We have seen some treatment going on in this area, but like I said, you really just want to stay off the roads if possible. And then not only are you keeping yourself safe, but you're keeping those people, the emergency crews safe who are out there, because they have a lot to deal with today, so you don't add anything else to their plate. Earlier we were at a place where there was water over the road and someone actually had to come out and fix the barriers because people had taken down the barriers and drove through the water. So you don't want to do that. It's not good for you, not good for anyone else. So just try to stay home if can. If you go out, just stay safe and go slow. Back to you.
Yeah, that's a no-no to try to take down that barrier. Thank you so much, Connie. You've done a great job all morning long. You know, it's been a busy 24 hours for the Austin Fire Department. Since 9 a.m. yesterday, crews have responded to nearly 300 calls for service. That includes 17 fires, 45 traffic accidents, and 5 reports of electrical wires and arching, I should say, right? I'm saying that. Arcing, there we go. And a reminder, the Cap Metro is suspending its services today due to the weather. However, emergency transportation service support will still be in place to assist with emergency response efforts from the Emergency Operations Center. Cap Metro will also supply buses that will help get people to those warming shelters that we just mentioned.
Let's take you out now to Route 620 and 222.
Yes, let's check back in with Pamela. Pamela Combe. Pamela, how are things looking out there?
Well, we apologize once again.
She just can't catch a break. She's working hard and we can never hear her.
First time on the morning show, and we're having some technical difficulties. When it gets this cold out, things just don't work. Batteries don't work right. So we're going to try and get a hold of her.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. We have all day to figure it out. We'll be right back. We have a short break.
Headlines are great, but headlines don't tell the whole
Welcome back. It is 10:47. We continue our coverage on the winter weather.
Let's go to Tony Plahetsky. Tony, who do you have for us on the phone now?
Again, just keeping in touch with all of our emergency responders, not only in the city of Austin, but really throughout the whole region. And right now on the phone, we have Stephen Truesdale. He is an Austin Fire Department Division Chief. Stephen, how are you doing this morning?
Safe too. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear? How's it going out there this morning?
Things are going well so far. It's been relatively quiet. We certainly hope it stays that way, but we are preparing for all the different possibilities.
So, Stephen, we a little while ago gave out some numbers of crashes that you all have responded to, other emergencies that have unfolded as the winter precipitation began moving in overnight. Do you have the latest information in terms of what all you all have responded to?
Well, we have not seen a lot of collisions since the last update. Currently have one working on the upper deck of I-35 on the southbound side that just came in a couple of minutes ago. We're also working, it's a wilderness rescue off of Slaughter for a patient for exposure to the weather, someone that spent the night outside. So those are the two significant incidents that we have working right now. We are upstaffing additional apparatus to respond to calls that we anticipate happening with the freezing weather. We did that yesterday as well. Fortunately, we haven't seen the uptick in calls. It's been quieter than normal so far.
Stephen, I want to talk to you. I mean, obviously, we're encouraging people not to get on the road unless they absolutely have to. But if they absolutely have to, what are some pieces of advice that you would give people if they are in an emergency or do have an absolute necessity that requires them to get on the road? What are some ways they can be safe?
Well, I'm sorry, my speakers just went off for the call I was telling you about, but we, obviously stay off the elevated roadways, use the surface roads when possible, and really kind of pre-plan your route and think about the safest way to get there to avoid, significant hills. And that's only, like you said, only if you absolutely have to be on the roadway. If you can avoid it at all, please do so.
Stephen, I know you've been with AFD for many years, probably more than 2 decades at this point. But I want to ask you, as someone who has been on the front lines of winter weather emergencies through the years, how is what has unfolded, at least so far today, really compare with your experiences previously?
Well, actually, I think it's better. I think people having the recent memory of Winter Storm Uri are more alert and aware of the dangers, and so I think people are being more careful. Unfortunately, people forget because sometimes our ice storms are several years or a decade apart, and then people just don't remember how bad it can be with just a tiny amount of ice on the roadway. So I think in that regard, the recent memory of last year is helping people to, stay put.
I was talking to Jasper Brown, the interim chief for Austin Travis County EMS earlier today, and I was talking to him about how our first responders are really doing. It's been a rough couple of years for all of us, obviously, but our medics, both with Austin Travis County EMS and Austin Fire Department, truly are on the front lines. Can you just describe, the sense of dread, if there was a sense of dread going into this weather event this year?
No, I wouldn't describe it as a sense of dread. I know we have folks who obviously have had called on to work a lot of additional shifts to backfill for the folks who've been out sick. We had people that worked 72, 96 hours during the winter storm last year just because folks couldn't get in to relieve them. That hasn't been the case today. I think, they're just have the mindset that, we know what to do. We've been through this recently, and we're going to take all necessary precautions and make all the necessary preparations, and we'll be ready to handle it.
We've talked a lot about road conditions, but I want to transition also to talking about people who are staying in their homes. With extremely cold weather and icy conditions, that can pose a danger too from both carbon monoxide poisoning as well as fire itself.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a lot of folks last year who were using whatever they could to stay warm, but we want to certainly remind everyone that your stove, your oven are not designed to heat your home. They put off more carbon monoxide than your residential heater, especially if it's running continuously. So just be cognizant of that. And of course, we saw some very extreme measures last year where people were even using barbecue fire pits, charcoal inside their house, which the CO accumulates very, very quickly to toxic levels. We don't expect the power outages, which hopefully everybody will be able to stay warm. But, before taking extreme measures, consider all the other possibilities of seeking shelter somewhere else, trying to stay warm with blankets or just doing whatever you can to avoid taking those extreme measures.
I also want to ask too, speaking of that, I mean, certainly as you all are moving about the city this morning, have you seen people who are in distress, maybe who are homeless, unhoused, who may need assistance? Is that something that you all have seen and are equipped to help handle?
We haven't seen many cases. The one rescue incident that I mentioned does sound like it might have been a person experiencing homelessness who spent the night in the woods, and we're on the way to assist them now. We did have an incident earlier where a tree branch had fallen on someone where we assisted EMS. But again, we're not seeing a widespread, those incidents on a widespread level like we did last year. And of course the city has provided other resources as far as warming shelters. So hopefully a lot of those people took the initiative to seek alternatives before it gets much colder, which we know is on the way.
Stephen Truesdale, Division Chief for the Austin Fire Department, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your perspective this morning from the front line here in the city of Austin. We really appreciate it very much. Now we want to go over to meteorologist Shane Hinton. Shane, what's the latest?
Thank you, Tony. We're continuing to track that wintry mix for a majority of the KV viewing area. You can see out towards the east, we're seeing those showers continue to push out. As you make your way to the hill country, we're monitoring the possibility of maybe some sleet or even snow flurries. I do start to see the end of that moisture. We are starting to pick up on some intensification between this band that's moving from the hill country to I-35. We'll continue to monitor that closely because with temperatures well below freezing, we're going to be monitoring that possibility of some accumulation. So we'll continue to monitor that for you. Notice that current winds and gusts are still on the breezy side, just shy of 30 miles per hour out in Austin, and that brings along with it that significant wind chill. In fact, hypothermic conditions will be tracked throughout the rest of the day into the overnight period, and even for Friday morning. Feels like it's in the single digits as you make your way to Fredericksburg, and it feels just below 20 degrees as you make your way towards Austin. Current winds and gusts across the entire state. It's breeziest currently up in Amarillo with gusts up to 36 miles per hour. So take a look at how it feels. It feels like it's 18 degrees in Austin, which, don't get me wrong, is cold. But imagine it feeling negative 18 degrees, folks. Okay, so small little things. Well, now negative 16. Okay, that's the kind of day the Mother Nature's trying to throw me. Take a look at that future wind chill as we go throughout the rest of the day into the afternoon, feeling like it's only in the 20s as we head to around dinner time, feeling like it's in the teens as you make your way out towards the hill country. Leaping forward into Thursday night, we're talking about single-digit feels like temperatures out west. You're going to want to bundle up because we're talking temperatures close to zero for your Friday morning. Just shy of lunchtime, we're still talking the upper teens to lower 20s. So overall, it's spelling cold hypothermic conditions possible. In regards to that moisture, as I mentioned, we're going to continue honing in on that band that's possibly intensifying as it approaches I-35. We are expecting all of that moisture to move out of here by dinner time, really. Notice some parting of the clouds that will allow us to stay on the cool and calm side in regards to precip. However, it is going to get cold and it's going to stay windy. In fact, I don't see our winds calming down until the back half of Friday into Saturday. A hard freeze widespread is expected for Central Texas. You can see this on your overnight lows. We're talking teens and lower 20s are expected. As we take a look at what we're doing when we're tracking the temperatures, take a look at both the GFS and the European forecast models. Expected to safely be above freezing for both of these. It's nice to see some consensus between the two. By Saturday afternoon, we're talking temperatures in the 40s, and the good news is they warm up even further as we make our way into Sunday. We're talking upper 40s to maybe even lower 50s. You can see on the weekend forecast, sunshine will return, and so will our warmer, quote unquote, warmer temperatures. We'll be right back after the break. Significant icing is expected for today.
And what you see is the water here, that's going to quickly freeze.
More than 6.
Radar is colorful this Thursday morning. Overnight it was rain, then the temperature dropped and we had freezing rain. And right now we are seeing ice across Central Texas. Good morning everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for KVUE News Midday. I'm Jenny Lee.
And I'm Ashley Goodo. Central Texas is still under a winter storm warning. It went into effect last night and lasts until 9 o'clock tonight. Now, Governor Greg Abbott just wrapped up a briefing with state emergency leaders and is set to give us an update on conditions across the state. Representatives from ERCOT, the Public Utility Commission, and numerous other agencies will be with him. We will bring you the news conference when it gets started.
Yeah, while we wait for that to get started, let's take a live look outside. Not much to see right there. Lots of wet stuff on our camera, but you know, this rain from this morning has like you can see, just frozen over our camera. So let's get straight to meteorologist Shane Hinton for the latest on this freezing forecast. Shane.
Thank you, Jenny. Hopefully everyone's staying warm out there. We are continuing to monitor the conditions here in the KVUE Weather Center. As you had mentioned, we are, for the most part, all of KVUE viewing area under that winter storm warning for all the areas you see shaded in pink. That includes everyone except Fayette County. They are under a winter weather advisory. Our warning lasts until 9 o'clock this evening. Our main concerns are going to be ice and sleet accumulation. We're now starting to hone in more on the idea of sleet accumulation just due to how cold everything is, and then also some of the videos and photos that our viewers are sending in. We greatly appreciate them. But hey, the main story is ice. You're taking a live look out of Concordia University web camera where you can see the trees absolutely coated as they gently sway in the wind. Not as calm for other portions of central Texas as we are tracking gusts around 30 miles per hour for the KVUE viewing area. Giving you a look across the state of Texas and stretching out towards the Midwest, you can see that this system is a sprawling one. About half the state is under that winter storm warning, which is a stark contrast to last year's winter storm. If you recall, the entire state was really enveloped in winter storm warnings and advisories. As we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see our friends and family out there in Houston now under a winter weather advisory. They've been under one for about at least through today, earlier today. As we take a look across the satellite radar, you can see, as you mentioned, Jenny, a little bit of everything. We have that rain pushing out towards the east. We have that freezing rain and sleet that we're mostly tracking for a majority of the KVUE viewing area, and then maybe even some snow flurries mixed in for a band of precipitation we're seeing to intensify as it moves west, or moves from the west toward I-35, I should say. As we take a look a little bit closer, that's kind of that band I'm talking about that you can see stretching from Fredericksburg all the way to Burnett. You see the areas of white. By all means, if you are a viewer out there, please send us video or photos. If you're able to safely take it, send it our way. We effectively tell the weather story thanks to our viewers. I want to show you the temperatures zoomed in Travis County first. You can see all of us in the 20s currently, with coolest temperatures out there in Lago Vista and Spicewood at 24 degrees, 27 currently at Camp Mabry. We do expect the temperatures across the entire area to continue falling throughout the day. The only folks right now who are quote unquote lucky with their temperatures are LaGrange. They are sitting at 34 degrees. Okay. Now we are continuing to monitor a lot of the conditions for you, giving you a look at your winter weather headlines, what you need to know for the rest of the day, and even as we head into the next couple of days. Want to give you a look at that potential for precipitation to fully transition from rain to freezing rain and sleet. Right now, we have gotten freezing rain reports from earlier this morning out in LaGrange. However, temperatures based off of the thermometer still showing it hovering right above freezing. Ice accumulations are going to be possible anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/3 of an inch. Isolated totals around 1/2 an inch are still fair game and still possible. Sleet from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, I would not be surprised if we increase these totals as we make our way throughout the rest of the morning and into the afternoon, just due to that intensifying band. Hill country and some areas in the Austin metro region want to make you aware that if we're not able to warm up Friday afternoon, that we could still see temperatures stay below freezing, and that would make it a total of around 60 consecutive hours of a freeze. That is not as long as what we were tracking last year for the February storm. I want to give you a live look out in Round Rock. You have to look past the ice on the camera, but it almost looks like flurries. If you look at the bottom center portion of your screen where you see the tree, you can kind of see through the ice. It looks like flurries. It's pretty difficult to kind of distinguish from this altitude whether or not this is snow or sleet. For those of you out there that kind of wanted to determine for yourself what's happening outside, just keep in mind that sleet is going to be bouncing off the surface. And I know that's kind of difficult if you've already had sleet accumulate, because then at that point it could just be building and not really bouncing off the Earth's surface. But snow is going to be more that light flurry, and you know snow, you guys. I know we don't see it too often in Texas, but you know snow when you touch it. Sleet is going to be a little bit differently. But we're also continuing to monitor the roadways out there. We've got meteorologist Christopher Nunley in with us. Chris, how are things looking so far this morning?
Shane, the road conditions continue to worsen as those temperatures continue to fall. This is taking a live look. Look at the traffic on 35 southbound. This is in Round Rock. Rock. You can see this is near Westinghouse Road. Notice traffic moving pretty slowly out there. The roads are a little bit slushy, starting to ice over even at the surface as those temperatures continue to fall. So if you have to get out on the roadway, you want to make sure you give yourself extra time. We advise just stay inside as those temperatures are going to continue to fall. The precipitation is going to continue to fall, so the roadways are going to continue to become slick throughout the afternoon hours. And every area shaded in pink, that's where we have, according to Txdot, icy road conditions that are being reported, mainly bridges as well as the overpasses, so those elevated roadways. But as those temperatures are falling, we're noticing the road conditions continuing to worsen, especially along and to the west of I-35. But as those temperatures continue to work their way toward the colder temperatures, work their way toward the east end of the coastal plains, everybody going to see those pretty nasty icy road conditions as we work our way throughout the afternoon hours. We do have one issue that has popped up north of downtown. This is near Hyde Park. There is a report of a fallen tree and a burst water main. So near Hyde Park, this is just on the east side or the side facing I-35. There is a road closure due to that fallen tree as well as the burst water main. Not sure if this is weather related, but with the ice and cold conditions, it's possible that that is weather related. We're going to continue to monitor that and see if there are any new developments over the next few minutes. And also, as you work your way toward I-35, you're heading north from Round Rock. The road conditions on I-35 are a mess. North of Round Rock, we're noticing very slow conditions on the roadways due to I-35 being pretty iced over from the freezing rain as well as the sleet. And that's the same way as you work your way north toward Leander. We're noticing some pretty icy conditions. So Williamson County really dealing with the pretty nasty roadways as those temperatures are falling. It's 25 in Georgetown, and here in Austin, notice our temperature has slipped to 27 degrees. So we're continuing to see those temperatures fall, and that is going to allow the roadways to continue to ice over. Whatever residual moisture is on the roadways, the rain you saw overnight, that slush from the sleet, that's going to harden, and some areas are going to become like an ice skating rink. So again, you want to make sure you just stay inside if at all possible, and the road conditions are not going to improve because we're going to see the temperatures continuing to fall. And like Shane said, we're monitoring that band of precipitation just to the west of I-35 that has started to develop. That's going to work its way toward the northeast, and with our temperatures continuing to fall, whatever additional sleet or freezing rain or even snow in some cases that we see is just going to make the road conditions even worse. So you want to make sure that you are going slow if you have to get out on the roadways, and you want to give yourself extra distance between you and the car in front of you. And if you do encounter a skid, if you slide on the roadway, you want to ease off the brake, and you also want to steer into that skid. That way you are able to regain control of your car. Again, roads are really starting to become slick out there. Several reports from Txdot of elevated surfaces being completely iced over, and we are now getting reports on some of the major roadways, especially just north of Round Rock on I-35, of the roadways becoming pretty icy out there. So again, if you got to get outside, make sure you give yourself extra time and you have extra distance between you and the car in front of you. Jenny?
That is certainly, those are good tips, but you hit the nail on the head. The conditions are just going to get worse. It has certainly not been pretty on the roadways. According to the Austin Fire Department, from 9 a.m. yesterday to 9 a.m. today, there have been 45 traffic accidents with injuries. Joining us now is Diane Hodges from the Texas Department of Transportation. Good morning, Diane, and thank you so much for taking time to talk to us this morning.
Good morning, Jenny. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And Diane, what's your assessment of the roadways right now?
Well, as you've been mentioning, we are seeing some icing on the roads. As to be expected, this weather keeps coming. So until the precipitation ends and we stop with the freezing rain and sleet and snow flurries that are coming down, we are just going to have to keep treating those roads. So we are using a de-icing agent now that we are putting down to help melt any of the ice that's forming. But that being said, the roads will not be perfect. So if you plan to get out, you really need to slow down and be mindful that you could encounter some ice on the roads.
Diane, for the past couple of days, we have shown Txdot crews pre-treating the roadways. How has that paid off?
Well, we always want to take the opportunity when we can to pre-treat, because that actually helps to keep the ice from binding to the surface of the road. It also lowers the freezing temperature. So where you would normally see 32 degrees, it actually will allow it to get colder before water will freeze on the road. However, we've got very cold temperatures now, and we have had a lot of rain and freezing rain and sleet, and so the pre-treatments were put down, but now we go into de-icing, right? So we do to step 2 of our process, which is taking a granular salt material, basically, that we lay down on the roads, which will help melt any of the ice that is formed there.
And so, Diane, some people may not understand why Txdot Crews put down the de-icing chemicals right before it rained. Can you please explain the logic behind that? Because a lot of people think, oh, you put it down and just washes away. But there's logic behind that.
Right. So, and we know that, of course, we're going to anticipate if you're going to get ice, that means you're going to get moisture, right? Mm-hmm. So the only way you get ice is if something wet is hitting the ground. But if we can get the brine down, which we did, right, in between, we had a lot of rain early in the week, and then we were able to get in and put the brine solution down and then come back. Actually, some rain can help with the brine solution because it spreads it a little bit and helps it get into the cracks and surfaces on the road. But at some point, when we get really cold temperature, it's not working as effectively as it should because, Mother Nature, right? So that's why our crews have been working around the clock. They are working 12-hour shifts, and they are out there. They are monitoring the situations. Obviously, we're paying very close attention to our elevated structures. Those are the places that freeze first. And where we can, we've actually started using our motor graders, which have a blade on them that can help move ice and snow and that's those kinds of things off of the roadway. So that's being used right now up in Cedar Park and out in our western counties. And if need be, we will actually put that to work on I-35 as well. We just urge anybody, please stay home if possible. If you do get out, just keep your distance from any other vehicles around you and just drive to conditions.
All right, Diane Hodges with the Texas Department of Transportation, thank you. And of course, thank you to all the crews out there working for us over time. Thanks so much. Of course, we have team coverage on this winter storm from all parts of central Texas. And here's Jake Garcia in the passenger seat right now, driving all around Austin. And what are you seeing out there, Jake?
Jenny, right now we're right near the UT campus off Guadalupe Street. We've been in the car for about 20-25 minutes, made the drive up from the North Austin area down this way, and I guess the good news is people have definitely been listening to the warnings that local officials have been talking about so heavily the past few days. We really haven't seen a great amount of people on the streets, and I think that's one reason why this storm is trending, at least at this point, in a different direction than the previous one. I remember, at this time last year, people were in a little bit of a panic, and so they were taking to the roads. They were going out and last-minute grocery shopping at the last second, and that was a cause of a lot of car accidents and people getting stuck in the ice. Different story this year. Not as many people out on the roads. Again, we've been driving for 20-25 minutes. Haven't really seen any traffic issues. And so that's the good news. I'm going to flip cameras here for a second just so you guys can get a look at the condition.
Well, unfortunately, it looks like we may have lost Jake's shot there. We're going to check back in with him a bit later to get more information about what's going on the roads. But you also have the opportunity to show us what you're seeing. We have some photos from Fredericksburg and Marble Falls, as well as Austin. Folks sending us their pictures of their iced over backyards. We certainly do appreciate seeing your photos. You can send them to us by sending us a tweet or texting them to 512-459-9442. All right, Governor Greg Abbott is speaking about the state's response to the winter storm. Let's listen in.
A lot of important information that we want to share with the public. The first thing I can tell you is we are dealing with one of the most significant icing events that we've had in the state of Texas in at least several decades. And as we will discuss over the course of our presentations today, there are some consequences that result from this being such a significant icing event. The main thing that we want to do today is to continue our efforts to keep the public informed about exactly what is going on about the power grid, about what the state is doing to respond to the winter storm, and what Texans can do to enhance their own safety over the course of the next few days. First, the power grid. The power grid is performing very well at this time. I'm going to be making reference to this graph and this graph at this time. This graph right here shows expected power demand for about the next 24 hours for the remainder of today and early tomorrow. It shows that the power generation capacity that is expected and a breakdown of the source of that power, whether it be wind, solar, or thermal. It shows that there is plenty of power available at this time, as well as plenty of power expected over the remainder of today and early tomorrow. At the expected peak demand, not just tomorrow, but in this entire winter storm event, at the expected peak demand, there should be about 10,000 megawatts of extra power capacity. To put that in context, that is about enough extra power to supply about 2 million homes. The second graph, this one over here, that shows the current demand for power in Texas at this time. That would be the bottom line, which is kind of the teal or green colored line. It also shows the current available capacity of power from the grid at this time, and that's the top line. It shows that there is about a 20,000 megawatts of extra power over current demand. Now, very importantly, even though at this time we have an extraordinary amount of extra supply of power, at this time, there are about 70,000 customers in Texas without power. So how can that be that there are people in the state of Texas without power if the grid is fully functioning and has ample power supply? The reason is because of issues with local power providers. The most probable cause of a power outage right now around the state of Texas for anybody who's without power is either because of heavy winds affected lines, or more likely because of an icing condition, where ice itself could have brought down power lines, or ice could have weighed down on trees or tree limbs that would have brought down a power line. Anyone out of power at this time should call their local power provider. If you do not know how to get a hold of your local power provider, I'm going to give you a website address that you could use to contact your local power provider. Go to puc.texas.gov/storm. If anybody needs access to try to find the phone number of the power provider to call because your power is out, you can go to puc.texas.gov/storm. Now, to address the down lines, or for whatever reason why local power providers are not able to provide power to your house at this particular time, I want you to know that local power providers are bringing in extra resources to get those power lines back up, and the state of Texas is helping them. There are more than 10,000 linemen already working for power transmission companies to assist with power lines that are not working. And in addition to that, almost 2,000 more linemen are coming in from outside the state of Texas. To expedite the repair trucks that are needed, that are coming in from outside of the state, I am issuing a proclamation that authorizes the Texas Department of Public Safety to waive some regulations that will allow them, those repair trucks, to get into the state faster and easier. Also, To help local jurisdictions, local governments, rapidly respond with the tools and resources they need, I am at this moment issuing a proclamation for all counties most heavily affected by the ice storm at this particular time. They are listed in this proclamation that I'm about to sign, and they include 17 counties across the state of Texas. So this proclamation is now in effect for those 17 counties, but we know that over the course of the remainder of the winter storm, there may be additional counties that will need to be added because of conditions on the grounds in those counties, in which case we will be supplementing this proclamation to include those additional counties. Now, in addition to the forecast that ERCOT and the PUC are relying upon, there are other reasons to provide confidence in the ongoing resiliency of the power grid. One is that, as compared to last year, Texas has about 15% more power generation capacity. There is also more reserve power available than last year. Unlike last year, winterization has been required for power generators, and there's been about 99% of those power generators passed inspection. Last year, some generators were not available because of maintenance operations during the course of the winter storm. This year, more generators are online because they were required to do maintenance either before or after a winter season. Also, more natural gas facilities are designated as critical infrastructure to ensure operation during a winter storm. Last year, less than 100 facilities were designated as critical infrastructure. As of now, more than 2,900 of those facilities are designated as critical infrastructure. Also, unlike last year, some generators that use natural gas also have alternative fuels to generate power in the event they are not receiving the natural gas that they were expecting or needed. Also, if weather limits the flow of natural gas, we have several days of natural gas in storage that can be used. Additionally, the grid is projected to have a surplus of more than 10,000 megawatts for peak power demand tomorrow morning on Friday morning, which we expect to be the peak of demand for the winter storm. In short, to repeat what the chairman of the PUC has said, the Texas electric grid is the most reliable and resilient that it's ever been. Now, there are more than 24 state agencies that are working 24/7 to help respond to the winter storm. And all of the agencies that are seated at the table will be making presentations about what they are doing. I'm going to cover those, some of those that are not at the table right now. One is the Texas Military Department, which includes the Texas National Guard. They currently have deployed at least 127 personnel and 52 vehicles and will add more as needed. They have 5 winter weather mission-ready packages staged in Abilene, Wichita Falls, Lubbock, Brownwood. That one's going to be moving, I think, to Wiley, as well as in Round Rock. Winter weather packages are comprised of 18 personnel, Humvees, wreckers, and ambulances. TMD also has assigned a military district coordinator to Garland to coordinate Texas military resources in the North Texas region. The Texas Military Department has a battalion of mission command staged in Lubbock, and they have additional resources that can be deployed as needed. As one example, they have been involved in assisting motorists on Interstate 20, mile marker 220, which is near the Abilene area. The Texas A&M Forest Service is currently supporting Txdot, as well as the Texas Division of Emergency Management, with winter weather response with personnel and equipment assigned to San Angelo, Abilene, Amarillo, Brownwood, and Sherman. Texas Parks and Wildlife. They are prepared to support with 4x4 vehicles as well as personnel statewide. 2 things about what they're involved in doing in more detail. They have assisted the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas Department of Transportation with motorists in the Wichita Falls area. Additionally, they will be announcing later on today that some state parks will be closed for a short period of time as we work our way through the winter storm. But that will be an announcement coming from the Texas Parks and Wildlife later on today. The Texas Animal Health Commission is now activated at the State Operations Center right here and is coordinating with animal response partners at both state and local levels. Currently, they are working on potential hay and feed or other livestock-related support following the storm. All partners have indicated right now no unmet needs, but are working to prepare for anticipated issues. The Texas Animal Health Commission staff remain on standby for response for any animal issues that may arise. The Texas Department of State Health Services is coordinating with hospital preparedness providers on resource needs such as potential power outages, water issues, medical staff surge, or overnight lodging. They have put 3 emergency medical task force severe weather packages into the field, as well as 2 additional ambulances on standby to cover affected regions. Already, they have delivered more than 100 oxygen tanks in the Austin area in the event that they are going to be needed, and stand ready to make deliveries of oxygen tanks to any affected region where there is demand. With that, I am going to turn it over to Peter Lake, the Chair of the Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you, Governor. As expected, we have received reports of local outages from across the state due to icing on power lines and ice weighing down tree branches and trees. We are working closely with transmission companies across the state to ensure they deploy the resources needed to restore power as soon as possible. We have worked with them also to ensure that crews were pre-positioned before the cold weather set in to address these outages as quickly as possible. If you are experiencing a power outage, please report it to your local provider, and please check puc.texas.gov/storm for information about outages in your area and for information about contacting your local provider. I'd like to thank our partners at Txdot for working closely with these transmission companies to ensure that the necessary roads are cleared so that crews can get to the necessary equipment to restore power as quickly as possible. It's important to understand that these are localized outages that are not related to system-wide reliability issues, as you can see on the screen behind us. The grid remains strong, reliable, and it is performing well in this winter weather event. In addition, we will continue implementing the robust reforms passed in these last few months. Unlike last year, we will be operating the grid in a much more conservative approach with a bigger margin of safety of reserves and an abundance of caution. Most importantly, our generators and power lines are now weatherized to not only meet but exceed federal standards. We have worked closely with our partners at the Railroad Commission to ensure that critical infrastructure on our natural gas supply chain is identified and protected in the event of any emergency situation, that to ensure that they continue to receive power so natural gas continues to flow to our generators. In addition, the market reforms implemented in ERCOT are ensuring that our generators have additional fuel on site and accessible, as the governor mentioned earlier. Unlike in the past, they are able to economically procure this fuel, keep it on site, and be sure they have redundancy in weather events like this. These generators have pre-positioned crews, much like our transmission companies have, so that if there are operational problems at a generator, those can be addressed quickly. We will continue to work with our partners at our fellow state agencies to ensure localized outages are addressed quickly. The grid is strong, is reliable, and is performing well in this winter weather event. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brad Jones, the CEO of ERCOT.
Thank you, Governor. As we've indicated in the past, we continue to operate the electric grid in an extremely conservative manner. We are bringing on more resources, having those resources available early, making sure that they're stabilized to continue to provide reliable service to the grid. That goes for our forecast as well. As you see behind us, our forecast has increased since yesterday by about 3,000 megawatts. Similarly, our wind expectations have also increased. The reason for the wind expectations to increase is that we had been forecasting a significant level of icing in the western part of our state. That has not occurred as severely as we expected, and so our wind forecast now is much higher than it was previously. In addition, we've been working on communications throughout the entire industry, talking to each of our industry partners, working with the state, but also working with every part of our industry, generators, transmission distribution providers, to make sure that we are communicating sufficiently and accurately across all of those different forums. We recently contacted the TCEQ yesterday morning to ask for enforcement discretion. I know that the TCEQ will talk about that as well, but that has already been granted. In addition, we have not seen any of our generation come offline for cold weather situation, which is indication that our weatherization program is working as we had hoped. Finally, I would like to again reiterate that we have been operating in an extremely conservative manner. We have a high degree of confidence in our grid. We feel very comfortable in our current situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Commissioner Craddock with the Texas Railroad Commission.
Thank you, Governor. The Railroad Commission has been conducting daily operational calls since Monday with the three major natural gas providers, or your gas utilities, that serve approximately 97% of the residential customers in the state. They don't anticipate any service interruptions to the residential customers, so your gas should stay on, you should have heat, you should be able to cook. And they have additional support crews available if any issues arise. If you have an issue, please call your local provider if you have any outages. Since last fall, the Railroad Commission has conducted over 4,000 weatherization site visits, including 100% of our intrastate underground storage has been inspected. Prior to this event, the natural gas pipelines packed their pipelines and underground storage at near capacity. Operators have transitioned to 24-hour operations and suspended all scheduled maintenance. This morning, we confirmed at our operator briefing with approximately 100 operators, including production and pipelines, that operations are continuing as usual and they are prepared for the current weather conditions. Fluctuations in production are in the normal range. We want to thank Txdot and the local counties to make sure our roads are continuing to be open and get cleared. We do have some challenges with roadways that are isolated and regional. Mostly the Permian Basin operators, though, are reporting that they are not having problems getting people to sites. Again, we have line pack and storage are in good condition and the gas is flowing.
Thank you very much. Next is Toby Becker, the Executive Director for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
Thank you, Governor. I'll start by just piggybacking off of what Brad said, that yes, we did grant enforcement discretion as of 6 p.m. Last night, but what I'd like to talk about today is water systems. We are monitoring water systems across the state closely. At this point, we have no significant reported issues, and we've not received any notifications of boil water notices related to Winter Storm Landon at this point. However, it's cold outside and water lines freeze when it gets cold outside, so we do expect that we have some frozen pipes across the state. Frozen pipes can lead to line breakage, which can lead to a loss of pressure, which ultimately could lead to a boil water notice, and that's the main reason why we see boil water notices. So there are three things I'd like to ask Texans to do to prepare for this. Is number one, I'm encouraging you to closely follow your water provider. They're going to let you know what the status of your system is and whether you're under a boil water notice. Two, if you see a pipe break in the street that's not in your yard or in your house, report it to your provider immediately. It will help them, and it'll help your utility get out there quickly to fix that and keep the pressure up in the system. The next would be if you have a pipe break in your wall or in your yard, so on your side of the meter, go and turn the water off at the street so you don't bleed the pressure out of the utility system. And then finally, we have a link on our website with a video on how to turn your water off. Our website is www.tceq.texas.gov. If you go there to the winter storm landing page, there's a video that'll show you the different ways to turn the water off if you have a line break in your house, and that will help your local utility keep the pressure up. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Next is Mark Williams, the Executive Director for the Texas Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. Txdot personnel continue to be active statewide with 24-hour operations underway. Our pre-treatment efforts have now transitioned into clearing and de-icing work that is going on. Heavy rains impacted the effectiveness of pre-treatment in many areas, and heavy icing, as the Governor noted, continues to make the roads very dangerous. We have approximately 2,500 road segments along and generally west of I-35 that are covered with ice and/or snow, and driving conditions remain and continue to be dangerous. We do, in particular, want to point out bridges and overpasses as being locations that motorists need to be aware of as they're approaching. Governor Abbott also noted the assistance that Txdot has had from a number of the state agencies that are represented here. This has been a team effort, and we do very much appreciate the help and the support that we get and that motorists receive from those agencies along with our personnel. A couple of closures of note. The Metroplex in particular continues to see a heavy amount of snow and freezing precipitation that's ongoing, I think, in those areas. And in some of our other urban areas, our ramps and overpasses in some locations are closed. We've also closed the managed lane system in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in order to help conserve resources and allow our teams to concentrate on the main lanes in those areas. A few other trouble spots of note to just be aware of. Interstate 10 between Ozona and Fort Stockton. We've seen some issues with some of the semi-tractor trailers having trouble getting traction going up some of the hills in that area. And it was also noted Interstate 20 between Abilene and Fort Worth overnight. There were some challenges there, and we still are seeing some potential problem areas that we're responding to and treating. Primary message, too, that we want to get out for motorists: if you don't have to be on the roads, don't get out there and drive. We also want to encourage motorists, along with the media, to refer to our website, drivetexas.org. That's the location where as soon as we have road information and updated road information, we put it on that site so you all can have the best information available. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much. Next is the Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Colonel C. McCraw.
Thank you, Governor. Texas troopers continue to respond to crashes and stranded motorists across the state, certainly with our local partners in Txdot, Texas Military Department, game wardens, to be able to address those things. Clearly, the most significant factor, I think the Chief can agree with that, is driving too fast for the prevailing conditions. The icy roads, there's no downside, there's no minimum speed enforcement when it comes to icy roads, and there's no reason to be pressured to go any faster than you feel safe when you're on the roadways. And one advisement, based upon some of the things we've observed, is if you're following a Txdot truck over an overpass, don't try to pass it, okay? Let it de-ice the bridge and the overpasses, okay? Allow them to occur. I know that's a problem in some of the areas, especially in some of the construction areas that we've seen. I would, at the end, also I'd like to remind people, if you are stranded, there is a telephone number you can call. And many people have taken advantage of it over the last 24 hours, Governor. It's 1-800-525-5555, and it's on the back of your driver's license. So please use that. If there's an injury accident, 911. But if you're stranded, please use that number, and someone will be there to help you. Thank you very much.
Very good. Next is Chief Nim Kidd, head of the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor, and I want to continue to thank our local partners that are working all across Texas right now. This morning, we hosted another statewide call with over 1,200 call-in lines from our local partners there. Our mass care teams continue to support local efforts. We have warehouses stocked with food, with water, with MREs, and with blankets. Additionally, over 185 warming centers are open across the state of Texas right now. Big thank you to the local government partners that have opened that up. Another 56 of those warming centers are on standby. And finally, I want to reiterate some of the things that have been set up here and add a little more to it. Our first responders are out there on the streets every day. And right now, they're out there doing everything they can in these dangerous conditions to answer 911 calls. Our hospitals still have our healthcare workers that have traveled there. And so if you do not need to be out traveling right now, do not get out on the streets if you have ice on those road conditions. Finally, we need to remember the people, the pets, the plants, and the pipes. As Director Becker talked about, we will see water pipes and we will see freezing, so do everything you can to limit that damage to your home and keep the system in place. And finally, Governor, the very last thing is, if those first responders that are out there, give them plenty of room to operate. Again, if you don't have to be on the road, do not be on the road.
Very good. Listen, before opening up for questions, I want to take a moment to thank all the men and women in this building, as well as in office buildings across Austin, who are working 24/7 to make sure that the state is doing everything we can to both keep the state safe as well as to address any of the challenges that our fellow Texans are facing. So thank you, everybody here, for working so hard. Wes will take a few questions.
Yes, sir. Bryce, can you go ahead? In terms of the pre-treatment of the roads and trying to get the icing issue, so how much would you say was the effectiveness of the pre-treatment that happened over the last couple of days?
Well, it really kind of depends. It's kind of a localized issue depending upon the amount of rain that we've received. I can say that a lot of the pre-treatment efforts were diminished significantly in some areas because of the heavy rain that served to wash off some of that solution that was put down. Nevertheless, I think there's still some areas where we've seen some benefit from those efforts, but the icing as well is really an important point of emphasis to us. That makes the roads very dangerous, even with the pre-treatment that we put on.
Bridget, Fox 7, go ahead. Fred, CBS.
Governor, you mentioned waiving some rules for the DPS to get the line crews. What kinds of rules are they? Do they compromise anything?
They should not, because the director of DPS is the one in charge of that. I'm going to have him answer specifically what they do, what the waiver does.
Yes, sir. It's Part 395 of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. It's to support this ICE event. This includes, but it's not limited to, power grids, repairs, and delivery of groceries, fuel, propane, not unlike we did before in the last ice storm or other conditions in that regard. It doesn't compromise safety in the sense of if a vehicle's out of service, they remain out of service. They don't get the back-end service just because of this waiver. The governor doesn't compromise any of the particular safety protocols, but it does allow for some restrictions to be removed so we can get the people into the area that needs to be addressed.
One restriction that I think it expands upon, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it removes the limitation on the hours of operation to make sure that they don't drive here from some other state and get close to where they need to be, only to have to stop operating to go the last 50 miles or something like that. We want to make sure they're able to get to the destination they need to get to provide the assistance that's needed.
Right, Commissioner Craddock, have you had any reports of failures of gas production facilities in the field, Permian Basin? What have you been alerted to, if anything at all?
The fluctuations really are within the normal ranges, and we are talking to operators all over the state to make sure gas continues to flow.
Does that mean you were aware of the Oxy U.S. plant in Crane going down, freezing up this morning, and emitting about 1,600 pounds of sulfur dioxide?
The emissions, I think, would go to TCEQ, so I don't know if he's aware of the emissions piece. We are aware that there are some operators in the field having some challenges, but they're working through those challenges as we speak.
And how much of a concern is that?
Again, the gas is flowing, so I don't think that any challenges we see in the field are affecting what's going on across the state. Again, that will be a TCEQ question because he... I think that that's a report that they give to TCQ, so they'll continue to follow up with that.
Last question, Monica, go ahead.
The peak demand was projected to be around 71,000 megawatts on Tuesday. Now, of course, that's risen to 75, and the reserve power supply has dropped. Why the sudden change in the forecast hasn't changed?
Just like any forecast in weather, they evolve and become more fine-tuned and more accurate as we get closer to the operating day. ERCOT is simply refining and improving their forecast the closer we get to the operating day. As always, we have a wide range of tools available to provide an additional margin of safety, but at this point, we see a very comfortable amount of excess megawatts and excess capacity.
Very good. Thank you all.
Well, we've been listening to Governor Greg Abbott and other state leaders discuss the situation across the state of Texas as we deal with this winter storm. Let's recap what the governor said. One of the big takeaways, he called this, quote, the most significant icing event in Texas in decades. But he said that the power grid is performing, quote, well. And Governor Greg Abbott also told us that there was, quote, plenty of power available at this time and that there will also be enough power for tomorrow. At the expected peak of this situation, the governor says there should be enough capacity on the grid to power 2 million homes. Some other points that he made, we want to note that there are, though, about 70,000 customers without power at this time. A lot of those folks in North Texas, in the Dallas area. He says this is because local power companies are coping with several conditions. They have high winds, they have ice, and that's what's causing some of these problems. So if you have an outage, you should call your local power provider, not necessarily the state. If you need information about how to get in touch with your local power provider, it's puc.texas.gov/storm. Now, when we think about the state action that's being taken, Governor Greg Abbott said that he signed a proclamation. In fact, we just saw him do it, allowing out-of-state electricity crews to come in to assist. He also signed an emergency proclamation for 17 counties, and the Texas National Guard is deploying crews out. In fact, there are crews staged in Round Rock, ready to go out to help where they are needed. The PUC is also going to operate more conservatively. They're going to have more power in reserve, and we're told that national gas generators will have power. Now, in terms of some of the government links and phone numbers that we're giving out, they gave out a lot of good information for people. So we want to show you, well, I'm actually hearing that we don't have that ready. We're going to put that on KVUE.com for you, though, a little bit later. But we want to point out that if you do have to be on the roads and if you are stranded, there's a number on the back of your driver's license. You're going to want to call that number to get help. A crew will come and help you off the road. All right, KVUE's Bryce Newberry is in the Alternative State Operations Center where that news conference just wrapped up. Bryce, talk to us about your big takeaways.
Well, Ashley, I think the one thing that's really interesting, of course everyone is focused on the power, but after last year's storm, when the power did go out, we were then faced with all of those water issues. And one of the interesting things that came up, I think, in this press conference just now is that water is not a concern right now. The executive director of the TCEQ saying that there are no boil water issues across the state right now, but that's really important, and everyone kind of plays a role in that, keeping an eye out for busted pipes, because when pipes bust and water starts to leak, that's what leads to low pressure, and ultimately when water pressure gets too low, that's what leads to the boil water notices, and that was kind of a 1-2 punch that everyone dealt with last year. And so this year, at least right now, even though temperatures are cold, that is not a concern, at least right now. Ashley?
Yeah, and we do want to point out that they actually gave us a website to go to as well, Bryce, with videos showing how to cut off your water if you need to. That is tceq.texas.gov. Bryce, one of the other things that you had the opportunity to ask about was the road conditions and what's happening on roads and the preparations that are continuing to happen. Talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, we were on the road for about 5 hours this morning during daybreak covering the road conditions, and of course we've been in touch with Txdot over the last couple of days about kind of the lead up to this big winter weather event. One of the interesting things that came out of that, we all had questions, how would the rain affect all of the pre-treatment that they were doing? The executive director of Txdot saying this morning that there was an issue, that the pre-treatment that they put down on the roads, it's a sticky brine solution, that pre-treatment did wash away in some cases because of the heavy rain that we saw. We heard that rain, we watched it fall all morning during daybreak, and so crews have now transitioned their focus from the pre-treatment, of course, to now clearing the roads and focusing on de-icing because, of course, there is still a lot of ice that accumulated on our highways across Central Texas and across the state. Ashley?
Bryce, obviously the big thing that a lot of people are concerned about is the power and are the lights going to stay on. One of the big issues during last February storm was that natural gas providers had their electricity cut. That caused a problem. We're told today that's not going to happen, right?
That's right. We did hear from the leader of the Texas Railroad Commission who says that they did have a call with their operators this morning and that operations are ongoing as usual. She said that your gas, your heat, anything that you use for cooking, that is all expected to be just fine. No impacts that they're reporting this morning. Ashley?
All right, KVUE's Bryce Newberry live at the Alternative State Operations Center. Bryce, we thank you so much for that report. And of course, we want to show you those links and numbers that we mentioned on your screen. So puc.texas.gov/storm. This is in case you have outages. The information to contact your power provider is there. You can also take a look at the grid's capacity for yourself on that website. If you head on over to drivetexas.org, that's where the most updated road information is going to be from the state. And we also want to again point out, if you're stranded on the roads and you have an injury, you're going to want to call 911. If you don't have an injury and you're stranded, you're going to want to call 1-800-525-5555. That number is also on the back of your driver's license. The crew will come out to help you. And then when it comes to water, what to do if you run out of water, how to turn it off, you can get all that information at tceq.texas.gov. All right, let's check in with meteorologist Shane Hinton now to see how the weather's looking. Shane?
Hi there, Ashley. We are continuing to track, as we've mentioned, that wintry precipitation across Central Texas. I want to give you a live look out in Round Rock just because we're getting some interesting reports out there. Up north and on the I-35 corridor, we had even seen some snow flurry reports even late last night. You do see the ice that's over the web camera, but I want you to kind of look in between the ice. It certainly does look like snow flurries, but honestly, a majority of the reports that we've been getting, if not freezing rain, has been sleet, even seeing it accumulate in some portions. We're going to continue to monitor these reports to see if we do get some flurries mixed in. We're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, at least in regards to the precipitation out in the hill country. Notice that near Mason, we're seeing it clear quite a bit. Temperatures on the cold. This is a paid advertisement for legal services.
Injured in a car, truck, or motorcycle wreck?
If you're kind of wondering what you're seeing outside, if you see it bouncing whenever it hits the surface, whether that's your car or a window or the Earth's surface, that's going to be your sleet. Now, there could be some flurries, as I mentioned, scattered in through there. You know what snow's like. It's the light, flaky stuff. You know what it feels like. It's different when we're talking about sleet. Do want to point out there near Round Rock, measured several times from a trained spotter for the National Weather Service, has indicated 0.2 of an inch of ice. So that is going to cause some serious travel impacts. We've been monitoring the roads for you all morning and will continue to do so through the evening and overnight hours. Notice, now a nice update for you. Notice, it looks like Mason has been dropped from the winter storm warning. That's breaking news here. The rest of us that fall under that winter storm warning, all the areas in pink, will be running through 9 o'clock this evening. Ice and sleet accumulation are going to be our main impacts. Notice that Fayette County is still under that winter weather advisory. If you recall with the 2021 February storms, all of the KVUE viewing area and then even further down to the south was included in a winter storm warning. So these are two completely different systems. This is an ice event for us. Let's take a look at those current winds and gusts. It's still blustery out there. Gusts just shy of 30 miles per hour out in Burnett. 25 mile per hour gusts out at Camp Mabry. Sustained winds, the numbers you're seeing in white, anywhere from 10 to 20 miles per hour. Now this is crucial not only for our wind chill, which is bone-chillingly cold. We're talking single digits for areas such as Burnett, Llano, and Fredericksburg, feeling like it's 20 degrees out in Austin, but also because any ice that's accumulated on tree branches or limbs, that can help to snap them, break them, land on electrical lines, and that's where we could see a lot of our power outages occurring. So let's show you what you can expect for the rest of the day and as you head into tomorrow. That wintry mix will continue until the early evening. I'm going to be timing out when we can expect for the precipitation to end. Temperatures, they're not only declining, they will continue to decline, and a widespread hard freeze is expected. Now, I mentioned that the temperatures have been declining. Let's show you what they've looked like for the past 20 hours. Yesterday afternoon, we were sitting around 50 degrees out at Camp Mabry, and notice that steady decline that we experienced overnight. We saw it reach freezing, I think around 3:40 this morning, if I recall correctly, when I was in the studio. You can see we've been staying below freezing since then, and we will continue throughout the rest of the day. Notice as we go through the afternoon, some flurries possible for the I-35 corridor. That area of pink, that's going to be your wintry mix, your freezing rain, and your sleet. Going to continue pushing out towards the east throughout the evening. By around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I could see it really moving out of central Texas. We can see those clouds moving out of here. We're going to hold on to breezy conditions, and that cold is sticking around for a while. Overnight, expect that widespread hard freeze. Temperatures anywhere from the upper teens to lower 20s on the thermometer, but that wind chill is going to be significant, feeling like it's in the single digits, even close to 0 degrees for areas west of I-35 for Friday morning. As we leap forward into Friday afternoon, I do expect many of us to get to or above freezing, especially if you're east of I-35. Now, Austin, I had the forecast at 34 degrees. What's going to play a crucial role is not only our winds, but really our cloud coverage, because some indications have shown the possibility of some mid-level moisture in the atmosphere, which could indicate some cloud coverage, and that would keep our temperatures on the cooler side. Regardless of what the thermometer shows, it's still going to be cold out there. Take a look at the future wind chill as we go throughout the evening into your Friday morning. This is 7 o'clock where it could feel like it's 2 degrees. Some models even indicating cooler earlier today. In Blanco, Fredericksburg, Burnett, even feeling like it's in the single digits along the I-35 corridor. As we leap into Friday afternoon, it's still going to feel well below freezing. Let's take a look at the upper level air pattern as we go throughout the next several days. I have some good news. We are expecting a warming trend. If we don't break freezing tomorrow, have no fear. I do expect us to reach there on Saturday and Sunday. Temperatures in the 40s, which still cold, but it's above freezing. And we certainly should be reaching above freezing on Sunday, where the forecast is calling for temperatures in the 50s. I want to show you across the state because notice we are seeing a little bit of moisture on some of the models, but it's staying south for now. We're going to be tracking the potential for another weak cold front. I don't see that impacting our afternoon highs too much, but it could bring about a 10% chance for some moisture on Monday. Weekend forecast, afternoon on Saturday, lower 40s, safely above freezing. Even more safe above freezing is going to be on Sunday, where we're tracking temperatures in the lower 50s. Your 7-day forecast shows an even stronger warming trend as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. I've been telling people all morning, keep your eyes on the prize, look for that silver lining, and that silver lining is next week when we can see temperatures back in the lower 60s.
Thank you very much, and want to tell you Txdot is going back out and laying down some de-icer for those of you who have to go outside. We are telling people not to go out on the roadways because it is just too dangerous out there. Our team coverage continues with Connor Board, who is live in Round Rock for us. And Connor, Shane is telling us there's at least 0.2 inches of snow on the ground out there. The Austin Fire Department telling us there's at least 45 wrecks from 9 a.m. yesterday to 9 a.m. today with injury. Wrecks with injuries. What are you seeing out there?
Jenny, today I've been on the road since around 3 a.m. We're definitely seeing what you are talking about. Right now, you can see there's still some sleet coming down. It's kind of that sleet that's building up on the ground. The sleet's building on itself and then kind of just freezing over in some parts. So this morning we saw more of the heavy falling rain and sleet. And so it's kind of, right now, even though it looks more clear outside, the roads are worse because of those falling temperatures that Shane talked about. And we actually did see a wreck for ourselves on I-35 this morning. A car looked to have spun out and was on the side of the road and was facing the wrong direction. So you definitely don't want to be on those elevated surfaces. You can see some of those elevated surfaces behind me. Like I said, we're in Round Rock. This is the flyover connecting I-35 to Highway 45. Luckily, I will say we have not seen that many cars on. You can see a couple right now, but much, much less than on a normal day. So it seems like people are really listening to those leaders, asking people not to go out on the roads, especially on those elevated surfaces or areas that had not been treated. But like we heard in that press conference, some areas that were treated or pre-treated before this storm can still ice over because of all that rain we saw. So you need to be careful no matter where you are. Definitely don't recommend going on the roads unless you absolutely need to. If you do, go slow, because like you said, we have seen wrecks today. We've seen them ourselves, even some parking lots. We've actually slid around a little bit, and in the parking lot we're in now, the shopping center, it's actually closed. All the businesses are closed today. So hopefully you're not going out on the roads, but if you are, please be safe. And a big issue we saw earlier was from all that rain that actually washed off some of that pre-treatment was causing a lot of flooding in some of those low-lying roads. But right now it seems like the flooding is now shifting to the freezing, and you definitely don't want to be out in the roads in this, Jenny.
And of course, everyone has said conditions are getting worse. And a quick correction on my part, clearly there's no snow where you are, Connor. It's 0.2 of an inch of ice that has been tracked and recorded there. Shane Hinton, thank you so much for that correction. And of course, Connor Board, thank you so much for your continuing coverage. Our team coverage on all parts of Central Texas continuing for us. KVUE's Chris Nunley is joining us now. And Chris, take
Yeah, Jenny, so we had an accident. They just cleared it. So this is on the upper deck of I-35 southbound near Concordia. 3 lanes were blocked off due to an accident, but we just saw a tow truck remove a car. So it looks like it's in the all clear. However, the upper decks of I-35, a complete ice rink. You can see that right here. If you have to get out on the roadways, which we do not recommend, you want to make sure you give yourself extra time as those roads are icing over. Temperatures are continuing to fall. Again, they just cleared that accident. So the 3 lanes on the southbound upper deck of I-35 are now open. However, it is an ice rink out there, so you want to make sure you're playing it safe. The entire area now below freezing. This pink shaded area indicates where there's that possibility of ice-covered roadways, bridges, overpasses, according to Txdot. So as you can see, that's worked its way into the coastal plains, but the main issues are along into the west of I-35. That's where those temperatures have been below freezing the longest. So it's a mess out there. If you have to get out, again, you want to make sure you give yourself some extra time on the roadways. I'm also keeping an eye on this incident. This is near Hyde Park, on the east side of Hyde Park, facing I-35. We have a road closed due to a tree that has fallen, and there's also a water main that burst. So not sure if that's weather related, but we're keeping a really close eye on this. So this is Duval Street between 45th and 46th Street, completely shut off. Again, that is just near Hyde Park, north of downtown, keeping a close eye on that, especially as those temperatures continue to fall. If there's water that is shooting into the air, of course, that's going to cause some major issues out there. And we also have a road closed Fitzhugh Road is completely closed both ways. This is from Crossroads Drive to Ted Berger Road due to an incident that has popped up in that area. So continuing to keep an eye on that. And again, we don't want you to get out on the roadways, but we understand some people do have to go into work. If you are an essential employee, we're noticing that you want to give yourself extra time on the roadways, and you want to give extra distance between you and the car in front of you. A good measure, a good rule of thumb right now is to have a semi-truck distance between you and the car in front of you in case that car comes to a skid or they stop unexpectedly. So again, you want to give yourself extra time, extra distance between you and the car in front of you, and you want to have a safety kit with you in case you get stranded on the roadway. You want a blanket, you want your cell phone to be charged, have a couple bottles of water, and have warm clothes as well, because the temperatures are continuing to fall, the wind chills are dropping, so you could encounter a dangerous situation if you get on the roadway and for some reason you get stranded on the roadway or run into a ditch. So again, you just want to make sure that you are playing it safe out there, and the temperatures are continuing to fall across the area. So that's why we're noticing those icing issues continue to develop, especially along and west of I-35, where we have temperatures that are now in the mid to upper 20s, some lower 20s in the hill country. And that's really when you start to see some significant icing issues develop. And we're still having the ice fall along I-35. So we're having some of that freezing mist, that freezing rain, some sleet pellets continuing to fall in Hayes as well as Travis, Williamson counties, and now that's extending into Caldwell, Bastrop, Lee, even now Fayette County has seen those temperatures drop below freezing. So again, the road conditions are only going to continue to get worse. Now this is one cool thing. I'm trying to see if I can still see it. A little bit earlier I saw some steam fog coming off of Lake Travis. You could kind of see the cold winds blowing across the relatively warmer waters, and you could kind of see, if you look closely, it's a little iced over, but there was some steam fog a little bit earlier, giving you an indication that those temperatures and the winds are that cold out there compared to just what we saw the other day with those temperatures in the 60s. So a lot going on weather-wise. The roads are bad. Stay inside if you can. We also have a couple flooding issues, some low water crossings that are closed due to flooding. There were 60 earlier. That has decreased down to around 50. But if you are getting out on the roadway and you come across a roadway that's covered by water, you want to make sure you turn around, because it only takes a few inches of water to wash a vehicle off of a roadway, stall it, and you don't want to put yourself in a dangerous situation. So a good reminder, make sure you turn around, don't drown. Now we're going to have some more, another look at the radar, the latest headlines, the power outages, all of that good stuff on the other side of the break.
All right, Chris, thank you. I'll take it from here. Now, Jake Garcia is out in the storm chaser with photographer John Perry. We want to point out that John is driving, Jake is just riding. Jake, tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, actually, that's an important distinction, because all day on KVUE we've been really telling people to not be on the roadway. So yeah, I'm in the passenger seat kind of monitoring the conditions. We're here on I-35 in downtown Austin heading northbound, and I was actually trying to time this up for you guys. We're unfortunately not going to be able to get the picture of what I wanted to show you, but as we've been saying all day, some of the worst areas around town are on the overpasses and the connecting bridges between one freeway to another. And so we were going on 290 connecting to I-35, and it was completely ice. There were tire marks from where cars had driven through, but if you went outside either of those, it was ice all the way around. So those are definitely the most dangerous conditions around town. Here on I-35, it's not like conditions are exactly great, but still definitely better than what they are on the overpasses. Last time I switched these camera views, we cut out, so bear with me if that happens again. I don't think it will this time. I think we got those problems sorted out. But as you can see, we're here on I-35 right now. Conditions very wet, ice off to the side of the road that's been accumulating, and as our meteorologists have continued to point out, as temperatures drop throughout the afternoon, it's really only going to get worse. So again, just because we're on these roadways doesn't mean that you should be too. Any temptation that you might have of, you know, how things are looking outside, hopefully we're answering all those questions for you all day long on KVUE. Again, we're on I-35 65 right now, headed northbound. We've been driving for, I don't know, about the past hour or so, and it's definitely clear that the worst spots throughout town are on freeways, are on overpasses. The side streets aren't as bad, especially when you compare them to what we saw last year. A few minutes ago, we were actually on South Lamar, and I remember in the ice storm last year, cars couldn't even get up that hill, and they were stalling out, they were skidding out, and they had to be towed out. That was not the case this year, which is definitely good news. We heard Governor Abbott mention earlier that this ice event, the one we're facing this year, is one of the most significant ones we've seen in decades. That's obviously not good news, but I guess the piece of good news that we will take from that is that Texans this year have listened. They're staying home. They're not being on the roadways. They're prepared. And honestly, that's all you can ask, because last year that was a big source of some of the problems, was people going out and kind of getting themselves into trouble and making matters worse. So the good news is that's not happening as much this year. It's still hardly like the roadways are perfect or in great shape. We're continuing to track this all day long here on KVUE. Next time you guys come back to us, hopefully we can show you what some of those overpasses look like, just to really hammer home that point of you don't want to be out here right now. So Ashley, with that, I will send it back to you in the studio. Feel free to come back to us whenever you'd like, and we'll give you another update.
Yeah, and we want to point out again, your photographer taking it very slow. We can see other folks passing it up. If you have to get out, you want to give yourself plenty of distance, drive slow. Jake, we thank you. We'll check back in with you a little later today. We now want to toss things over to Pamela Combe, who's in West Austin. Pamela, what are you seeing?
Ashley, yeah, I'm in Northwest Austin right now. We're 620 and 2222 meets. Let me actually show you over to the roads. We see two cars there. There haven't been too many cars on the roads, which is good. People have been taking precautions, staying home. The roads are a little bit slushy. We do see some ice a little bit on the roads, but it is pretty slushy. We've also seen some trucks passing by, just with the brine, the sand. Now, when you go over right up to the right, we also see the trees. There's a lot of ice on the trees. They're just covered in white, and that's just kind of like how everything is looking right now in this area. I actually want to show you right down here to this puddle. When we got here, that was just a puddle of water, and as you can see, it's actually starting to freeze up. I mean, temperatures, it's really cold right now, so it's starting to freeze up, and that's when it starts getting a little dangerous, when the roads start, freezing up and all of that. So let me actually show you right down here. I kind of showed you the trees. They're all covered in ice. This branch right here, for example, it's all covered in ice, as well as the grass. I actually want you to take a listen really quick, just how it sounds. And yeah, that's just all the grass that's covered in ice, and that's everything here. The signs, the roads, even cars, they're full of, this ice, the icicles. And yeah, I mean, this is just your reminder, stay home, stay safe. The good news is that, there's people have been listening to that. People have been staying home and staying off the road. So just remember to be safe and stay home. Back to you guys at the studio.
Report live in Northwest Austin for us. We now want to chat with senior reporter Tony Plahetsky, who's been talking with officials all across our area about what they're doing to keep their area safe. Tony.
Ashley, really relying upon them to help be our eyes and ears. And right now we have Williamson County Judge Bill Gravel on the phone with us. Judge, good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Hard work that you guys are doing. Listen, clearly the message that we are putting out is working because our streets are partially traveled today, and that's good. That helps our first responders.
Judge, I know you and I talked around 6 o'clock this morning, and at that point you were still in the single digits for the number of crashes that had been reported in the county. Can you give us the latest numbers on crashes at this point?
Yeah, so just an update. Currently, our Sheriff's Department is working no accidents in Williamson County. We've had some dozen since midnight. I would say that our accidents are far less than we've seen in the past, but our audience is clearly listening. Tony, I also wanted to give you an update as well. Our road and bridge crews have been out all night sanding and de-icing, and we've actually pulled them in. It's gotten gotten so dangerous that, sanding the overpasses is one thing, but we now have stretches of road that are just impassable because of sheet ice, like Ronald Reagan to 183. And so we're pulling that equipment back in, and it will only be going out for responses to assist our EMS and our law enforcement as we go forward in the next day or two.
Judge, you make an important point. We often can differentiate between elevated surfaces and ground surfaces. So I want to ask you, the ice that you're seeing on roadways, are we strictly talking about bridges and overpasses, or is it safe to say that at this point, most roads in Williamson County do have at least a thin layer of ice on them?
Well, so my senior staff is telling me that 95% of our county has accumulation as of right now. And that's really a good point, Tony, while we're bringing our equipment back in. It's great for de-icing the elevated areas and the bridges. But to your point, we are now talking miles of road that have some ice patchiness on them. Listen, you may look outside and maybe you can drive out your driveway, but I can assure you before you get to the corner, you're going to hit a patch of ice. So it's dangerous conditions out there.
Speaking of those dangerous conditions, have you been able to get any sort of update from our first responders, EMS, with regard to reports of slip and falls? I know that is something that we see from time to time, injuries occurring not just on the road, but in other ways related to icing as well.
I would say, yes, we currently are getting updates from our law enforcement and from EMS, and both systems are operating currently at normal capacity. I really believe, and this can't be understated, I believe our residents have listened. I believe our folks have prepared, and they're being at home and they're being responsible. I just want to encourage our citizens, look, it may look like now is an opportunity for you to get out and go somewhere, but be thoughtful about what you're doing, and do not be the reason that we have to use 911. If you can, stay inside, stay at home. Unless you're a first responder or a hospital or a nursing home professional that's reporting the work, let's just stay at home.
Judge, I've asked every official I've talked to this morning, and forgive me if this is a repetitive question for people who have been watching us all day, but I do think it is an important question. Can you just talk about takeaways from February 2021? How is your county better prepared this year for an ice event that is unfolding today, or we obviously still have several weeks of winter? How is your county better prepared now?
Well, I think there are several steps that we have taken this year and lessons learned. We had vehicles pre-positioned with the right aggregate or chemical on them. We had trailers pre-positioned with barricades that were willing to pull out, to block roadways. But something that our system did really well, and we've done really well and will continue to use, is reverse 911 notices from our emergency management team. Another huge takeaway is, for the first time ever, we've stood up a virtual command center in Williamson County, and normally that 100 people that would gather at our emergency command center, they're able to function at their residence with real-time data and information there, and we're communicating regularly. Another takeaway that's real important, Tony, is we have had multiple conversations with our utility providers who themselves have pre-staged equipment, resources, and people, and even folks to clear power lines in local hotels. And so I see real time right now. Encore in Williamson County, for example, has about 116,000 customers, and right now there are 323 power outages. Now, for those folks, that's horrible. I get that. But gosh, that is such a different picture than we looked at last year at this time.
Judge, one last question. Our meteorologists have been telling us, obviously, that the temperature is going down. We've had our high temperature for the day. It remains very slick on the roads. What are you asking your citizens of Williamson County to do this afternoon and into the evening?
You know, I'm a Texan, and I'm proud of my Texas heritage, my Texas roots. And I said to someone earlier, you want to go to a battle, you want to take a Texan with you. But one thing that is really not wise for Texans to do is to drive on ice and snow, because we're just not made to do that. And we don't have the equipment to help you do that. And so I just want to say to my fellow Texans, this is a great time to stay at home with your family, maybe check on your neighbors, your friends, take care of your plants, your pets, enjoy a good book, and if you have one, a fireplace. But really what I'm asking the residents to do is do not be the reason that we have to use 911 to come and rescue you because you've made a poor decision. Stay home and stay safe.
Williamson County Judge Bill Gravel, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for being patient with us as we got you on the air. We appreciate all of the information.
Your screen, 512-459-9442. We may share them on air. Remember, calling us will not work. So the number's right there, 459-9442.
All right, it's time now to get another check of the weather with meteorologist Hunter Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. We continue to keep a really close eye on the roadways. Tony was just talking to officials in Williamson County, talking about the deteriorating conditions in some instances. Jake was out there talking about the bridges and overpasses that are icy in many spots. And we are still watching roadways like this. This is a live look from our Kalahari cam. There's the Dell Diamond. Cars, they've been passing. It's been kind of slow and go stuff there, but looks like that road doing okay for now. But I want to point out our temperatures continue to drop. So it is 28 right now at Camp Mabry. It is 28 right now at the airport. We started the day closer to 30 degrees, and as temperatures continue to drop, really once you start to get mid-20s and below, I think that a lot of this residual stuff on the roadways is going to be a little bit more prone to becoming icy. So that's why, although not necessarily every road is impassable right now, our advice to you is just, if you can, stay indoors, stay on the couch, get a blanket, get hot coffee, hot cocoa, whatever you need. Just stay off the roads if at all possible. All of Central Texas is below freezing now. Even down to LaGrange, it's 32. In this pink, as we've been covering all morning, it has been widespread sleet and freezing rain that has been causing the icing issues. You also see some whites showing up here, especially as you go back out towards places like just south of Gillespie County. We could have a few snowflakes in a few spots. We've seen that especially across parts of Mason County, at least with some viewer reports there. Here's the motion on this. Again, I'm kind of watching this little band right here. It looks like maybe another band of precipitation setting up just south of Fredericksburg, and that could be an issue as that moves northeast. But the bottom line is we'll continue to deal with this stuff for another couple of hours. And then eventually this is going to come to an end from west to east as we go into this evening. So we still have a winter storm warning in effect until 9 p.m. In Mason County, you have now been dropped from the winter storm warning as a lot of the precipitation is already starting to end for the western hill country. But that does not mean, although the warning has expired, that all of a sudden travel's completely fine. Just means the precipitation has moved out, but still I'm expecting slick spots to continue through this evening and through at least tomorrow morning. So here's our model. Let's go through the latest run, high-res model. This is 2 p.m. Again, starting to see that drying taking place as we go into the early afternoon for places like Llano and Fredericksburg and Mason. Austin, though, to 2 p.m. through the early afternoon. Still, this is areas of sleet and freezing rain and just wintry mix and gross weather. And temperatures continue to fall. It's 28 right now. I think by 2 o'clock, model says 27. So let's keep going another hour or two. Here's 3:30. Still, places like Bastrop, Lee, Caldwell County, into Fayette County, still dealing with this. Here's 5:30. Temperatures keep dropping as we go into the late afternoon, evening. 7 o'clock, it's 25 in Austin. But by 7 or 8, I think pretty much all the precipitation is out of here. But we have a hard freeze in the forecast for tomorrow morning. Austin's going to drop down to about 20 degrees or so. Here's 5 a.m. 20 in Austin. Georgetown is 19, 16 in Burnett. Widespread teens, especially across the hill country. So temperatures in the 20s across the hill country now. They're not going to get anywhere close to freezing through the afternoon, and temperatures will drop down to the teens and low 20s by tomorrow morning. So anything that is not frozen right now, any residual water or sleet or whatever that we have on the roadways right now, certainly is fair game to create additional slick spots as temperatures continue to drop. And that's why, again, our advice to you, if you don't have anywhere to be and you don't need to be out on the roads, please stay inside even through tomorrow morning, as I still am anticipating issues with travel and issues with slick spots. It's really windy this afternoon. We've been talking so much about this freezing rain and sleet. We want to talk about the wind and the wind chills too. 25-mile-per-hour gust right now in Austin, gusting up close to 30 in Burnett right now. And here's our wind chill forecast for tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., it feels like 7 degrees in Austin. Blanco, Fredericksburg feeling like about 2 degrees by tomorrow morning. So a hard freeze, gusty winds. This is what we have in the forecast by tomorrow morning. So again, anything that's left out on the roads, still slick spots I'm expecting through tomorrow morning. Again, this is the radar right now, and then we'll continue with our team coverage here. And of course, we'll stay on top of this. We'll keep you updated with all the latest as we get new information in. But it is all of Central Texas at or below freezing. Now down to 27 right now in Austin. Sleet and freezing rain continue. And as our temperatures continue to drop, I'm still watching for more slick spots, not just on bridges and overpasses, but potentially on some of the other roadways, just regular old roadways. So my advice is just to stay inside. I'll have another update on the forecast coming up in a few minutes. In the meantime, we'll toss things back over to you guys.
It's good advice to stay inside. In fact, we have our reporters all over Central Texas to show you what it looks like so you can stay warm and comfortable in your house. In fact, KVUE's Mike Maroot is out in Burnett County. He's in Marble Falls. Talk to us about what you're seeing, Mike.
Well, Ashley, I wish I was home. I wish I was warm because it is cold, and like Hunter was saying, it is windy. I can deal with pretty much most weather. The wind gets me the worst. It gets through all my clothes. It's terrible. But I do want to show you what overpasses and bridges look like. We're right over Lake Marble Falls right now. The bridge here on 281, I'm not going to say it's a sheet of ice because it's not, but it is pretty close. We've also seen a lot of vehicles taking this bridge pretty quickly. Here you can see this truck is trying to rev its engine just to kind of get across the bridge. We've also seen a few people come out here purposefully revving their engines and trying to slide out a little bit, and it's not cool to do that. Obviously, it's very dangerous to do that. But I will say the good thing is there hasn't been a lot of traffic overall, but the traffic that has existed has been taking this bridge pretty quickly. I also want to show you exactly what I'm talking about with this ice and freezing accumulation. This has been here for hours. Now, there hasn't been a whole lot of precipitation in Marble Falls pretty much all morning because we slept over here overnight, but it has been very slick. It has been very cold. These bridges are what's freezing first. Now, I'm also wearing some hiking boots today because they are the grippiest shoes that I have. Knowing that I was going to be out here and covering this, I wanted to be secure. But if you take a look, it's very easy for me to slide along on just the sidewalk here. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of foot traffic around this time, but it is very, very icy right now. Now, we also have a semi truck coming down the bridge, coming onto the bridge right now. It's actually doing everything right. It is taking it slow and easing its way across the bridge. We've seen a few other trucks earlier today trying to take it fast. Don't do that. If you can, stay home. We are urging you to do that. Local leaders, state leaders, everyone is urging you to stay home. If you are on the roads, do what you can to not take bridges and overpasses. Like we've seen, like I just showed you, like we've heard, those are what freeze first. Over Lake Marble Falls here, the traffic has been light but steady. Now you can see another truck here taking it pretty quickly, and this bridge froze over. I mean, when we talked to the mayor, I think about an hour and a half ago, right around 10:30, 11 o'clock is when I was actually interviewing the mayor of Marble Falls, and he gets regular updates with his emergency command here in town. They have been very pleasantly surprised that they haven't had any serious crashes happen up until this point today, but it is still cold, it is still freezing, it is still icy, Ashley, and it's going to be something that we need to be aware of as long as people are out on the roads. Be aware of your surroundings, be aware of other drivers, be aware of how fast you're going, and understand that you need to slow down more than likely, as well as hit your brakes early. Don't try and stop at the last second like you might do on a dry, sunny day.
Yeah, you know, Mike, one of the things we really want to point out is this looks so different from what we've been seeing when Jake has been driving along I-35. Even when I drove on I-35 this morning, it was more of a wet situation, a slushy situation. That does not appear to be the case for you on that bridge.
No, it hasn't really been the case. We saw a little bit of slush very early this morning. I'll say 8:30, 9 o'clock is when we saw some slush. But since then, it's been pretty much hard packed. It's been very icy like I was showing you, especially here on this bridge and on overpasses that we've seen. But I'm going to walk to the other side here and kind of show you all along like the hillside kind of by CVS and some other the small businesses here. There is some, you know, all this white is kind of the icing accumulation that we've seen. It's all hard. It's not like it's slushy to walk around. It's very crunchy to walk around, and if you're driving, there's not a whole lot of slush anymore. It was wet. You can see on that van a lot of it's coming off the top, and if you are going out to drive today, also make sure, that reminds me, use an ice scraper. Brush off everything. Start your car early so you can start defrosting, and make sure you scrape everything off so that way if you are driving, you're not getting snow in the person behind you who's driving in their face. But like you were saying, Ashley, while it may have been slushy on I-35 and some of the other highways and roads near Austin, it really hasn't been the case out here in Marble Falls. And what we've heard from various people here in Burnett County, it hasn't really been the case for a while. Out in Mason, we saw snow very early this morning, not a whole lot of slush even on the roads that are on the ground, not even talking about overpasses or anything. But here in Marble Falls, it has been very icy all morning, and we're expecting to continue that late in the afternoon, and keeping up with Hunter's forecast as well to see when we can finally see a melt out here. But even then, it's still going to be slick and not very slushy, but very icy. Ashley.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. This again is why we tell folks to stay off of those bridges and overpasses. He's reporting live for us in Marble Falls. Let's take another wider look at all of the roads across the area with Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Ashley, the roads are continuing to ice over out there. You saw that live shot, and taking a look here, this is actually the upper deck southbound 35. This is near Concordia. You can see it is an ice skating rink, so you want to avoid this area. Honestly, all elevated roadways are completely iced over at this point along into the west of I-35. You can see a couple cars working their way on the upper deck of the northbound lanes, but I would try to avoid at all costs getting out on the roadways. And if you have to, you want to play it safe. You want to give yourself a little extra time and try to choose a route that has less hills or less elevated surfaces. That way you're on the surface roads that at least have that ground kind of insulating the roads at this point. Taking a look at Austin, you can see we do have a few incidents that continue to pop up, but fortunately what we've noticed throughout the duration of the morning are people have listened to the winter storm warning. A lot of people stayed at home. Fortunately, a lot of schools, businesses have closed, so there hasn't been a lot of traffic out on the roadways, but there have still been a few incidents that have continued to pop up throughout the morning hours, and we're still keeping an eye on this. So this is Duval Street. This is on the east side of Hyde Park. We have Duval Street closed from 45th to 46th Street due to a fallen tree as well as a water main burst. So keeping a really close eye on this. We've been monitoring this for the past hour, trying to gather some more information on that, and we will disseminate that to you as soon as we get it. And we're also noticing 2 lanes blocked due to an accident. I-35 southbound. This is at Texas 111 Loop Airport Boulevard. Again, we have 2 lanes blocked due to an accident there. And we also have a new accident that just popped up within the past 10 minutes. We have a roadblock due to an accident on 71 eastbound between Ben White Boulevard and 183. So a lot going on traffic-wise. Again, if you have to get out on the roadways, if you're an essential worker, we appreciate you. Please be safe on the roadways. You want to go slow. Give yourself extra distance between you and the car in front of you. A good rule of thumb, a semi-distance, because if the car in front of you swerves or comes to a stop, you need to make sure you're able to navigate around that with the possibility of those icy roads. Again, the elevated surfaces, they are completely iced over. The actual roads that are on the ground, the surface roads, are eventually going to completely ice over as well as those temperatures continue to fall and we continue to see that wintry precipitation, as Hunter mentioned. And if you do have to get out, you want to pack some safety items with you. You want to make sure your phone's charged. You want to have a blanket or some warm clothing to wear, as well as some bottles of water, maybe some granola bars in case you do get stranded on the roadway. That's what I packed this morning before the roads iced over. I brought my ski bibs, I have my snow boots, all that good stuff to keep warm in case for some reason my vehicle did stall on the roadway. So again, just make sure you're playing it safe out there. We've also encountered some low water crossing closures. We saw some heavy rain overnight, 1 to 2 inches of rain along I-35 from Hayes, Travis into Williamson counties. That did cause some flooding. There was at least one high water rescue this morning. So if you get on the roadways, not only are you battling the possibility of the wintry precipitation, but there is some flooding out there. So it's a rough day. Make sure you try to stay in if possible. And this is going to be a prolonged event. We're going to see the roads stay a little bit icy throughout the evening hours into tomorrow morning, but we're going to be here giving you the live temperatures, radar, the latest traffic report, as well as updates on the power outages. So stay tuned to KVUE, and we will continue to keep you updated. Jenny?
Chris, these are all great tips, but know, even if you follow all these tips, you can still slip and slide. Coming to work, I still slip and slide. All right, let's see if Jake Garcia and photojournalist John Perry, if they were slipping and sliding. John Perry is our photojournalist who is driving. They are continuing our team coverage on this winter storm Landon. Jake and John, how are y'all doing? Where are y'all right now? Y'all have been driving all morning long, all afternoon long.
That's right, Jenny. Right now, we're heading, what direction is this? Southbound on I-35, approaching Highway 290. I was hoping to time up this shot, and I think we're going to be able to give you guys a look at some of the worst surfaces we've seen today. Again, as Chris mentioned, as Hunter's talked about, as Mike mentioned earlier, the main takeaway here is that elevated surfaces are the worst areas to drive right now. And so that's what we're going to hope to kind of articulate here as we actually approach one. I'm going to flip this camera around and hopefully you can get a look at what exactly we're talking about here. So again, this is I-35 southbound approaching Highway 290. The roads are clear. They're wet, but they're clear for the most part. And as you can see, there's ice buildup on the side of the road. Now, as the precipitation continues and as the temperatures continue to get colder this afternoon, that's going to make its way onto the roadways. So again, the message here from all of us is to not be on the roadways. We're out here so you can get a glimpse of what it looks like and so you don't have to. And I think that you should be able to get a pretty good view of what we're talking about, Jenny. Again, there are tire tracks and pavement to allow the tires to hit the concrete, but everywhere else it's ice, and so you don't want to drive outside of that, because if you do, you could find yourself in need of someone to tow you out of here. So hopefully that was a good representation of kind of what we're talking about. Earlier today we stopped by Zilker Park, and not that you'd have any reason to go to Zilker Park today, but we did have an interesting interaction with this family, and I was talking to two gentlemen, and they were talking about how 10 years ago Austin got snow once, and they built a tiny little snowman and thought it was the coolest thing in the world. It's clear that this has kind of turned from a once in a blue moon type novelty and hey, this is a really cool snow day, to no, like this is actually something that's pretty serious. And this is now 2 years in a row that we've experienced situations like this. Not to compare the two, last year obviously kind of spiraled out of control, and we certainly hope that this year doesn't turn into that. But the point is, this is serious, and everyone needs to take precautions. So if you do find yourself out on the roadways, make sure to keep a distance between yourself and the next closest car. Make sure you're packing warm clothes and blankets and food, just in case you do find yourself in a situation where you're stranded. We drove past a semi-truck earlier on I-35 just a few minutes ago, and I have to believe that this guy was taking every precaution necessary, going slow, not following anyone too closely, and it still didn't really matter. That's how bad the roads are, and we expect them to only get worse as the afternoon continues.
That's why all the experts say stay off the road no matter what. I think I told you at the beginning, tossing to you, I was going really slow and taking all the precautions, and I was still slipping and sliding. The governor, I think you heard, said this was one of the most significant icing events in several decades. And what's your reaction to that? Are you seeing that as you have been driving the past several hours, Jake?
Yeah, I think those are definitely accurate words. I mentioned it in one of my live hits maybe 30 minutes ago that's accurate. But the good news is that this year Texans are heeding those warnings and listening to that advice and staying off the roadways. Jenny, last year's winter storm was bad for a number of reasons, but one of the worst reasons is because some people continue to compound the air. They continue to think like, hey, this is cool, let's go out and experience this, when in reality it was a dangerous situation. And so we're all grateful right now that this is not the case this year, that people aren't compounding those mistakes, that they're staying inside, and the roads are definitely a whole lot clearer because of that. We're actually, Jenny, approaching an area that is pretty significantly iced over, so I'm going to change cameras here to give you a look of what this truly entails. This isn't even really on an overpass. We're approaching a bridge, yes, but this is a busy part of Capital of Texas Highway and the interchange between Highway 290 and Mopac. And as you can see, this is much more than a wet surface. This is ice on the road, and definitely not great driving conditions. So again, the message: if you don't have to be on the roads, please don't come on the roads.
Yeah, every time you show me the ice on the roads, I get very nervous, so please be careful. I do also want to reiterate that Txdot has tweeted out that they are sending out crews to de-ice the roads again, because as we know, the rain has washed a lot of the chemicals off the roadways. So please, Jake, be careful. John, be careful. We appreciate your live reports throughout the morning. They, of course, are going very slow. It looks fast, but they are going very slow. Again, you don't have to be out there. There's no reason to be out there. All the schools are closed. A lot of restaurants are closed. Even a lot of stores have modified their hours. There's just no reason to be out on the roadways. As you can see, Jake has showed us there's ice on the overpasses, there's ice on the roadways, so just stay inside. Yep, there we go again. See, every time I see the ice out there, it's, again, Austin Fire Department released some stats, 45 accidents with injuries from 9 a.m. yesterday to 9 a.m. today, but they responded to hundreds of incidents. Those are just the accidents with injuries. All right, Jake Garcia out on 35, on I-35 for us driving around. We appreciate that. Just part of the team coverage for us today. So we want to do a little bit of a recap of the latest information. Right now, we want to let you know more schools are canceling classes for tomorrow. You will see a complete list scrolling at the bottom of your screen.
As you know, we're also taking a look at power outages. About 175 Austin Energy customers are without power right now. Again, those are local issues likely due to high winds as well as icing on the lines. But overall, looking at the state of Texas, this is a look at ERCOT's grid and market conditions. You can see that right now, they say the grid is having normal conditions, that there is enough power for current demand with more than 8,000 megawatts in storage. Governor Greg Abbott told us earlier today the number of megawatts in storage expected to increase to 10,000 at the peak of this event, and that's enough power to generate power for 2 million Texas homes. So right now, grid conditions are looking pretty good. If you are experiencing an outage, it is likely because your local provider is experiencing some issues. And the best way to report that is to go to puc.texas.gov/storm. In fact, you'll be able to take a look at this very grid, what we're looking at. You can see it. You can also find the information there to contact your local provider. All right, well, we're continuing our winter storm coverage, but first we want to take a live look at the radar. Hunter, tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so Ashley, in the pink there, we still have widespread sleet and freezing rain. And what we're going to talk about after the break is what I'm watching just southwest of Austin. I circled it there in the red, another band of precipitation that is starting to develop. So we've shown you all of these shots from our reporters across Central Texas, especially those bridges and overpasses seeing the icing. I'll be back with a live check of the radar and our latest models and all of the latest information coming up right after the break. Coverage of today's winter storm, which is bringing widespread sleet, freezing rain, and icing to central Texas. We have shown you all sorts of images. We'll continue to show you stuff like this so that you can see it on your TV from a warm couch with a blanket and not have to venture out into any of this. Again, our advice is just stay indoors if you can. This is our Concordia weather camera. You can see all that sleet accumulation on the ground. We've had significant icing there in the trees. I've zoomed in at times. You can see that ice accumulation on the tree limbs there. And I'm looking closely. We have lots of sleet and freezing rain, maybe even a few snowflakes trying to mix in from time to time. So if you have any reports of the type of precipitation you're seeing where you live, we would love to see those reports. You could tweet them to me at Hunt_WX. Our temperatures continue to drop this afternoon. That's what we thought would be the case. We started closer to freezing this morning, and now we're down to 27 in Austin. Then you go north into Cedar Park, it's 25. Leander, it's 25. So we have tons of residual water and sleet and just all sorts of mess, slush on the roadways right now. And I just want to remind everybody, any of these surfaces that right now are just wet, as temperatures continue to drop, I'm not saying that every single surface is going to immediately become an ice rink, but as temperatures get colder and we still have precipitation on the ground, that's just going to increase the likelihood that we get some more slick spots. So especially bridges and overpasses, that's why we want everyone to be mindful. When you have numbers like this, 22 in Johnson City and Blanco, with precipitation on the road, that's just not a good formula that you want to be driving in. Here's our latest radar. In the pink here, again, this is widespread sleet and freezing rain that goes now all the way down to Fayette County and LaGrange. What I'm watching, and we touched on this before the break, is this area right here. We've actually seen this a couple of times now, where we start to see new bands of precipitation forming to our southwest, and all of this is moving up northeast. So I think that this band of precipitation, again, probably more sleet and freezing rain, perhaps a few snowflakes in there too, this could make it farther north and east and could impact parts of the I-35 corridor, as eventually this is going to come to an end from west to east late this afternoon. So here are my updated headlines for you. Sleet and freezing rain are going to end late this afternoon and early this evening, west to east. Already, places like Mason County have been dropped from the winter storm warning, as a lot of the precipitation there is starting to move out. Here's the thing though, temperatures are going to continue to drop through the day today. So roadways that right now are just wet and through much of the day today have just been wet with plain old liquid water on them. As temperatures continue to drop, some of those roadways could freeze. Again, I'm not saying that every single roadway across central Texas is going to immediately become an ice rink, but as temperatures continue to drop, the likelihood increases that any of that water that is left on the roads is going to freeze. So a hard freeze tonight. We'll drop down to the teens and low 20s, and that means we have the possibility of icing even into tomorrow morning. Here's the latest run of our model showing temperatures continue to drop. As we go mid to late afternoon, here's 2:30, and we're going to have to watch the timing. It may be a little bit later than this, but as we go mid to late afternoon, precipitation is going to start to move out, and by the time we get to say 7 or 8 o'clock, I think most of this is moving out of central Texas, but temperatures continue to drop quickly. It's 25 in Austin, teens in the hill country by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. We wake up 15 in Fredericksburg. It's 20 degrees in Austin. Precipitation is gone, but because we have not been above freezing today, I think that icing issues will still be a priority for us tomorrow morning. So again, if you can stay indoors through tomorrow morning, I think that's safe. And if you must be out driving, we advise you tune into our Daybreak team tomorrow morning and check in with the roadways, as there certainly could still be trouble spots tomorrow morning. It's windy outside. We're gusting to 26 right now in Austin, so the feels-like temperature by tomorrow morning is going to plummet down to the single digits, maybe even below zero for some spots. Feels like 7 tomorrow morning in Austin. Feels like 2, low single digits. Johnson City feels like 4 degrees by the time we get into tomorrow morning. So this is our latest 3-day forecast. Of course, our big priority now in the forecast, once the precipitation moves out, is dictating when exactly we're going to get above freezing. So today, temperatures are going to continue to fall down to 20 by tomorrow morning. Austin, I think tomorrow afternoon will get above freezing. We'll go up to about 34. So that should help really start to eliminate any icing issues. But there could be other parts of central Texas, especially out across the hill country, that do not get above freezing on Friday. So if you don't get above freezing Friday, another hard freeze Saturday morning. Still, I think at the latest, there could be some icy spots even into Saturday. Saturday afternoon, we'll go up to 43 degrees, and that should pretty much eliminate any chance for icing. We'll be up around 50 degrees by the time we get into Sunday afternoon. So that's the very latest on the forecast. We will check back in with Jenny Lee now, who has more.
I just heard you say it feels like 2. That's what stuck out. All right, for Connor Board, I'm sure it feels like 2. She's live in Round Rock with the latest conditions. She is joining us and continuing our team coverage. What's it looking like there as conditions continue to deteriorate there, Connor?
Jenny, I will say you are right. It has definitely gotten colder throughout the day. You know, we've been out here since 3 a.m. driving around through Pflugerville and Round Rock, and what we have seen has gotten a lot colder. And I will say this is the first time probably throughout the whole morning that nothing is falling from the sky. Not much, there's a little bit, but not much rain or sleet. But what we're seeing is it's getting really cold and things are icing over. Even where I'm standing right now is a little slick, but I want to show you what's behind me. So like I said, we are in Round Rock, and this is the flyover that connects I-35 to Highway 45. And the thing that is good that we're really not seeing, a couple of them, but not many cars. People really are listening to local leaders who are asking people to stay off the roads. And just probably about 20 minutes ago, I think it was, when Tony Plahetsky was talking to the Williamson County Judge Gravel, he was saying that 95% of the roads in Williamson County have some sort of ice impacts. He's saying if you leave your house, you're gonna hit ice. You don't really want to leave right now, especially up here in Williamson County in the Round Rock area. And he also did say that some roads are impassable due to the ice. So anything you can do to stay off the road, stay at home if you can. If you really do have to leave, give yourself that extra time. Avoid these flyovers, avoid these overpasses. Take the long way if you need to, just to avoid the ice. And where we are right now, we haven't seen any recent crashes, but earlier today we did see someone who had spun out on I-35, and we've heard Chris talking about it throughout the day, that you just don't want to be on I-35, you don't want to be on those overpasses. Really just take it slow and go the long way if needed, Jenny.
No, and speaking of Judge Gravel, he also said they're pulling back the road crews because the road conditions are so bad. And of course, Round Rock Police also saying that the conditions are becoming increasingly icy. And I was kind of looking, I was going to ask you, you've seen fewer cars, but that is the good news, right? You have seen fewer cars in the amount of time that you've been there.
Yeah, definitely not as many cars out right now. So we're really glad that people are listening and staying off the road. So it really helps those emergency crews who they said they're having to pull back some of those road crews. So you don't want emergency crews to have to go out on the ice. So it's just better for everyone if you stay home, Jenny.
Yeah, especially since the conditions are deteriorating, as all our meteorologists have been saying and experts have been saying. All right, Connor Board, live in Round Rock for us. We appreciate it. Please go back in the car and get warm for us.
Austin and Travis County opened community shelters for people to get warm and charge their devices. The list of those centers that are open on your screen there, they're across the city. And these centers will be open for 24 hours a day as long as conditions permit. You can find the list and the addresses on KVUE.com. We also want to say thank you to all of our viewers who have been sending in their photos of what things look like all across the city. You can continue, the city and Central Texas, you can continue to do that. Jenny, as you mentioned, Txdot noted that they're going back out, they're retreating all of those roads in our area, which is just so very important because now the temperature is continuing to drop, which means all of that slush that was on the road earlier, everything that's fallen is really starting to freeze.
That's right, that's right. And here are some pictures that you guys have been sending us. Keep it up. These photos are from Pflugerville, Lake Travis, and Oak Hill. Now be sure to show us what you are seeing just outside of your front door. Don't go on the roadways to take these pictures. Just snap a picture, maybe through your window. This is just like your back deck. Just show us the ice. That's all we want to see. Just send them to 512-459-9442, and we may share them here, right here on KVUE.
Yeah, you can also tweet those pictures to us. Tweet us at KVUE, and of course we're going to continue to have all of the latest information for you, regardless of what's happening. You can follow us online, KVUE.com, YouTube, as well as on all of your favorite social media platforms. But again, the message that we're continuing to hear from lawmakers and state leaders is that as of right now, the power is good. They expect the power to stay on, which is certainly welcomed news. Folks who are experiencing power outages. We know there are some in our area, Jenny, and that's likely because those local power providers are dealing with high winds, they're dealing with ice, but they are working to get your power back on. In fact, the governor waived some of the regulations and the requirements so that crews from other states can come in to help out.
It is certainly a relief, Ashley, that is not a statewide issue, that the power grid is stable, and that, again, like you said, they're local issues, and that it is just fine. A relief for many of us that Absolutely. It is not an issue like we saw last year.
Yeah, let's get a final check of what we can expect throughout the rest of the day with meteorologist Hunter Williams.
Yeah, Ashley, Jenny, eventually this stuff is going to move out starting west. In fact, already starting to trend drier for places like Mason and Llano as drier air moves in. And by this evening, this precipitation is going to move out. But really what we're watching is the temperatures. They continue to drop. It's 27 right now in Austin, low 20s for places like Fredericksburg and Mason. So as temperatures continue to drop and we still have wet road surfaces, there's going to be roads that all day today have just been wet that could become ice and could become slick as temperatures continue to drop into tonight. So again, our constant refrain today is if you can stay off the roads, we really recommend that. In this pink here, we still have a pretty widespread sleet and freezing rain, especially Austin, points south and southeast. And then we're watching some more activity that has developed over Gillespie County and then farther southwest. This is kind of a new band that could be moving in. But again, the bottom line is eventually this is going to come to an end by this evening. So we'll leave you with this, our headlines. This will end late afternoon, early evening, but temperatures continue to drop. So roadways that right now are just wet could freeze, and a hard freeze is on the way by tomorrow morning. We'll keep you updated with all the latest, but in the meantime, we'll return you to our regular programming, all of the latest on KVUE.com.